Marvel Men Strike Megasaurs. Each Avenger has their own beast that converts into battle gear. Each
Is wrong. Okay, you guys can hear me now? Yeah, there we go. Now we got it set up. Let's get some audio. Confirm you guys can hear me, please. Okay, now you guys are good? Awesome. Okay, we got a bingo. Okay. Sorry about the struggles there, everybody. I was trying to get everything working. Camera's also pretty shit, not gonna lie. I'm gonna try to fix that if I can. See if that works better. You can tell the camera's like tilting down. I don't know how long the camera's gonna last here. Let me get centered. Okay. Oh boy, this camera is not gonna last. It just doesn't stay here. Come on. God, this is so awful, man. I went to the store and tried to find a new camera, and they're all this same crappy camera that just like you put on the top of your monitor that just falls right off. Okay, what I wanted to do here with you guys is go over the evidence, and I'm looking at the questions here in the chat to the best of my ability as well. I'm going to try to pop this out if I can. There we go. Okay, so I will follow the chat and try to answer any questions that you guys have in the chat. As you know, we were just a lot of Reddit's threads going on, everything like that. I can't keep up with everybody, and I can't keep up with even the Twitter. As you can see, I've got a million messages going on here at the same time as well. So it becomes too difficult at the moment. So what I'm going to do is go through some of the evidence with you guys, show the videos, answer whatever questions you guys want, and yeah, that sort of thing. So let's go ahead and start with the videos. So if you guys follow along at home, you can see we're at all my works here to date right now. So let's see, we got Intel, yeah. So the best thing to start with is the videos, right? Where these videos come from. Everybody wants to know where the videos came from. So this is a link right here. Oh, it's cutting out? Yeah, well, we'll have to deal with that. Unfortunately, I don't have a way to deal with it at the moment. Sound is choppy. I think that might be my internet connection. So if you guys want to wait a second, I can try to plug in, and then that will we're probably going to struggle through it. Okay, if you guys, if it's really bad, just let me know, okay? Let's go ahead and start with the videos. So these videos here are, I'm sure you guys can see this. Yeah, okay. So if we look at these images here, these are where they come from, the first version. We can see that this is the Regicide Anon account. This is the Internet Archive that we found. Actually, that was the link I just clicked on. And this is just a screenshot from it. Now, this is some of the most damning evidence right off the bat, is that we can see the incident, the date that the Malaysian Airlines Flight 370 was disappeared was actually March 7th, 2014 is when it took off. And then the morning that they claimed that it was lost was March 8th. So this indicates that this person received this file 4 days after the event, which goes to show that that's a very, very narrow window. There's a lot of intention that we can glean from that, because when we look at this account had other content that they had put, like UFO content that was unrelated to this. So it's really unlikely that they would have been the one who is, directly involved with this for whatever reason. Yeah, and people are mentioning just refresh the stream if there's any issue. Now, the other thing, though, it says is published May 19th. So what we've gleaned from this is that just like us, when we're looking at these videos, You know, the person that leaked them would have had a hard time understanding them to be real as well, and probably would have said, hey, you have to prove to me this is real. And that's the idea behind why it would have taken up to 6 weeks here, maybe even longer, for them to convince them. So that's the first clip from the first video. Now let's look at it. Here's the Internet Archive link right here. You can see this. So again, all of this information can be found in my All Works. We're starting just right from the top. And we're just going to go through everything here until I get tired. So here's the actual video. You can see here's the information I was just copy pasting, right? And now let's watch this video. Now, if you have a problem pulling it up, realize you cannot pull up just the YouTube here. You have to pull up the archive link. The YouTube is gone. So looking at this, what we're looking at here is stereoscopic. Give me 1 second. I'm going to see if I can plug in. It might help the issue. Hold on. I'll be right back. Okay, I just plugged it in so that I think I'm connected. Yeah, I'm hard connected now, so the connection should be better. I was getting a warning on OBS saying that we were dropping, so maybe that will occur. That will fix the issue there. So if you guys have problems, go ahead and reset the stream, refresh, and it should fix it. Feel free to put your questions in the chat. So we're looking at the oldest version here of the registered non-account. I'm going to pause it real quick because what I want to point out here is that we're looking at side-by-side video here. And when we're looking at this and it's scrunched down, it's very unusual. You'd wonder, why would you duplicate this? Right? It doesn't make any sense. But this is where we realize it's not duplicated. What we're looking at is actually two different cameras that are looking down to collect this data at the same time. And they're from slightly different angles. So I'll show you guys the proof after that. And notice that mouse that just came into the screen over here. When this mouse moves, it doesn't update these coordinates we see in the bottom left. These coordinates we see in the bottom left are not being updated by that mouse. They're being updated by some other analog that's coming into play here. And we can actually see, like right there very briefly, might be like they're unlocking something and then they're moving the screen around, right? Because the mouse stays still and then they move the screen around. And that's why we think they're using this plural view 3D like mouse. Now, this first orb comes in. This is coming in at like Mach 3. This plane's going 150, 200 miles an hour. This orb's going 10 times faster than it. It's going at 2,000 miles an hour. Now, interestingly enough, it ricochets past it. It almost looks like some kind of homing device, right? It shoots past it, and then it comes back. And watch what it does over here. It kind of goes around the side of the plane. It doesn't stick right on top of the plane right away, like it's trying to figure out where the plane is. And then it homes in and locks in on the plane. Now, this second orb is really interesting. If you watch very closely, you can see the second orb right there, where it's coming down through the water, or across the water, and then it shoots up through the cloud. There it is. So watch that again. So the second orb is going to shoot across right here, right now. There it is. And there's shooting up through the cloud, and now it's connected to the first orb. And now the third one comes in from the side as well. Now, look at this smoke trail that we see. The very, very clear smoke trail here. These clouds in the background are cumulus clouds, which are very low to the ground. So, and we'll get to the stuff about where the plane went. So if you want to ask those questions, feel free. But what that means is this is not contrails. And I don't think we could see exhaust either. If you look at other planes, exhaust is not really visible in any spectrum. This is smoke that we're seeing here coming from this plane. And that's why the debunkers were trying to prove that this isn't smoke, because this is super damning. Because this means that the plane's on fire. Now, and again, when we're talking on fire, it doesn't mean it's like actively burning up. It means that there's a fire contained in one of the cargo bays, potentially, that has broken containment. And they're trying to battle this fire, right? Now, once the third orb gets into play here, they lock in. And then their pattern begins. And when you watch this pattern, it's super weird. This is where initially, even when I'm looking at it, I'm going, this has got to be, non-human intelligence. Because this is a triangle pattern, right? But it's actually quite, if you think about it and look at like the black triangles that you would see out there in UFOlogy, it's quite a bit different. So it's not exactly like those triangle patterns that you would normally see, at least from the UFOlogy perspective. And now right here, you can see the orientation changes. Now it's vertical. They're completely vertical now. You see this vertical pattern now that they're not circling around anymore. So they first circle around the plane, and then they start this pattern where they're now in a ring formation vertically around it. And then watch what happens here with the zap, poof, right? And when we look at it in the thermal, which we'll look at in a second, we can see that they're closing in the last second. Now the smoke trail just stops right there. Now if this was some type of illusion or magic trick or cloaking, we'd see the smoke trail continue on. The leaker wants to prove it to us, just show us it's not off the screen. So they scroll over to the right. Shows, yeah, there's no smoke trail, there's no more plane. It's just straight up gone, right? And then they close the screen out, which would indicate that what we're looking there is a bigger field of view. And it also indicates that that they're doing this on a recording, essentially. We just started, Alexi, so there's probably going to be more people joining in here very soon. Let me see. So I'm going to answer a couple questions very quickly in the chat, and then we're going to go and we're going to look at the second video, okay? So that was the first video. Now look at this thermal. This is a thermal overlay of the second video, of the image in the second video. It's an exact match to Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. And I was actually pretty embarrassed yesterday when I realized I knew that this heat signature was down here. And you can tell it's completely different than the heat signature of the engine. Not even close to the same, right? And I had been staring at this and I didn't put two and two together that this is actually in the same location where the landing gear is. And if you look at the piece that I just did today or yesterday, you'll see that the situation with this is that there are two vents right here, two exhaust vents. Those are the exhaust vents where we're seeing the smoke come from. It's not coming from the engine. It's coming from the belly of the plane. So let's go ahead and just answer a few questions. Okay, blah, blah. I'll answer all of them. I'm not really afraid of answering any questions here. So where could the plane have gone? So the places where the plane could have gone, when we dig into the science, the options are it could go to another dimension. If you believe in multidimensional theory and what have you, it could go to somewhere else in the universe, really far away. Because when we're dealing with teleportation, faster than speed of light travel, now it opens the sky's the limit. It could go to the future. Time dilation is real, and we'll probably talk about that in a little bit as well. So when you travel at the speed of light, if you are your frame of reference, you will not, let's say you travel 1,000 light years away at the speed of light. In your frame of reference, it's not going to take 1,000 years to get there, especially if you can teleport faster than the speed of light. However, when you show up, it's going to be 1,000 years in the future. So for everybody who's there, it'll be 1,000 years later, but for you, you won't have aged 1,000 years. Pretty weird, but time dilation is real, and it's been proven to be real. So that will come into play later on. Now, with the Reddit post here, let's go ahead and just address that one real quick, okay, guys? So I'm going to scroll down to this, the VFX debunk, okay? I have a whole series on the debunking because that's how important it is to debunk this myth that's been posted by Mick West, which he has no credibility to begin with. Like, the guy's a complete clown show. But let's just go ahead and, prove that it has no credibility. So let's look at this because we're going to look at the video here in a minute. This is the supposed VFX debunk that supposedly matches. You can see, first of all, it does not match. You can see that it's not even an exact match to our effect, even on a single frame. It's also not even the same color. The effect doesn't even match here as well. What happened here is they just took two things that look similar, laid it over the top, and said these things must be the same, right? We call it prosaic debunk. And that's what Mick West usually does. It says, these things look similar, therefore they have to be exactly the same. But that's not how any of this works, okay? If you are doing a visual effect where you are, why did that not work? Where you are copying something, then you're not going to go ahead and modify it. The whole point is you would take an asset that exists and you would simply put it into your graphic. Now, looking at this here, you can tell it's not even close to the same. This is actually, the real effect is in the background here. And you can't even see it because this fake VFX is so different and so on top of it that it just consumes it. It's not even close to the same as our effect. Not even similar, honestly. I mean, okay, I'll say it's somewhat similar, but not really. It's not even the same color, okay? The other thing about it is that if you were to fake this, you would fake it with white, like you're seeing here with this explosion from this VFX. You would not fake it black because there's no basis for that. You would fake it as an explosion. But what we're seeing is not an explosion. It's an endothermic event versus an exothermic event. What we see with this white explosion is an exothermic event. Our event, which we'll show in the video in a second, is endothermic. So we'll take a look at that in a second here. Let's see what else we want to answer. Okay, why am I blocking people who ask questions? Because people aren't just asking questions is the answer. So if you go onto my Twitter and you try to be rude or condescending, you're going to get blocked immediately. I can tell the difference between people who are honest and people who aren't in about 5 seconds. I grew up in the internet age, so I'm very familiar with it. So don't try to fool me. Don't try to act cute, whatever. If you want to ask honest questions, then ask honest questions. Next question here. Yeah, the plane's not edited out in the footage. Editing it out from a footage like that would be extremely difficult. Plus, the rest of the footage would just be real anyway, right? And so that's the same thing about the VFX, is that if you're trying to claim that this VFX debunks the footage, well, you've only debunked the end of it. You know, the rest of it's still real footage. So the whole idea of it being fake doesn't even make sense, right? So in no way does that debunk our footage. Our footage is 100% real. Let's see what else we've got here. The fire did not, it could have potentially started before the plane goes dark with the fire. And we'll go through the flight path, because these lithium ion battery fires, they start up, but they don't immediately cause the alarms to go off. So probably what happened is this thing was building up, and it gets to the point after about 40 or 50 minutes when this plane is taken off, and then boom, all the alarms go off, fire, potentially even there's a minor explosion that occurs that causes our significant event. So, yes, and you can change the color of effects, but why would you? Again, let's be honest here. You're not matching something that already exists. This footage, it's like if I'm copying a painting, then yes, you can copy something to make it look like a painting. But if you're arguing that someone faked this, they didn't copy it from anything else. It's an original work. If it's an original work, you're not going to modify the effect. You're going to put the full effect in there. Again, this is very important to understand and very simple. Okay, so let's go ahead and look at the original videos again. So now that we've addressed a couple of those questions, and we'll come back to some of that stuff, okay? So the second video. Let's pull up the second video here. Come on, internet. There we go. Okay, so this is the second video. We just showed the satellite, stereoscopic. And the stereoscopic, we'll prove here in a second. Let me pull that one up too. Stereoscopic, proof of stereoscopic. We're going to pull this one up and have this be up ready to go as well. Okay, so this is the drone. Okay, so here we're looking at an MQ-1C Gray Eagle. And the MQ-1C Gray Eagle, let's just pull that up. Let's do new window. Oops. Let me see if I can get this. Okay. So this is what we're looking at here, guys. We're looking at one of these bad boys. We need the one that's got the cameras. Now let me see, there's this one right here. There's a good picture of it. Can everyone see this? Yep, okay, good. So you can see these huge cameras are right here, right? And they're on both sides potentially. So let's go back and take a look here. So this is what we're looking at. We're looking at an MQ-1C Gray Eagle. And what we're looking at here is an advanced electro-IR camera, okay? So the electro-IR camera has been they've added a thermal layer to the top of it. So this actually indicates that the person that leaked this was knowledgeable about the systems as well. We can see the same smoke trail. It actually goes right underneath the smoke trail as it's trailing the plane. And then it zooms in and we're watching it here. So this is real footage here. And we would have no idea to understand what this would look like without having seen those 2007 DoD Navy leaks that showed what a FLIR footage might look like. Now, look at this when we're looking at these orbs. You can already start to see the black trails, but watch the black trails closely. They're actually in front of the orbs. So you can see this black trail is actually leading the orb slightly here. And as black trail is leading the orb, it's pulling it forward. And these orbs as well are not being affected by gravity. They are just flying along. There's no visible propulsion that we see coming out of the back of them. They're just floating along, which would indicate superconductivity in general. Now, you see these trails are in front of the orbs there. This is some of the weirdest part for me, is that you look at this and you can see the trails are in front of the orbs in this triangle pattern. We can't see this from the satellite footage. We can only see it from the drone footage. And they're yanking them forward, almost like they're on train tracks here. Now we're going to see that same orientation shift where they become vertical here, right? Now they're vertical again on the plane from a different angle. We can clearly see this heat signature in the belly of the plane here where the landing gear is. And we can, again, clearly see that it's not the same as the engine here. And we can also tell that it's not from the other side because our vision of the other side is obscured by the plane. So this is coming from the belly of the plane. Now, again, this heat signature does not mean that what we're looking at right there is active fire. It just means that there's a heat signature coming from it. The idea being that, and you can see this trail coming from the back, is that this is hot air coming from the fire that's in the cargo bay. And what we're looking at here is where the exhaust ports are. And these exhaust ports for the heat are where this heat is coming from. I'll answer some questions in a second here. I want to go do the video. So you see them zoom out right here as well. They were already zoomed in, got a real good look at everything, and then they zoom out. And they zoom out at the exact right time here. Like that's the exact moment the zap's going to happen, which to me indicates that they know from the pattern what's about to occur. Now also look at this here. You can see the heat signature in the orbs. See that heat signature in the orbs there? So again, there's no basis for anyone to even begin to fake this. There's nobody to copy it from. No one even knows what this would look like, right? So you can see these heat signatures and they're spinning. They're spinning around as well, which would indicate that what we're seeing here is superconductors that are spinning, that are creating what we call geodesics. And geodesics are basically the path that an object will fall through. So think of it like gravity. And because it is essentially gravity, is that if you throw something in the air, it's going to follow the geodesics of space and time. What they're doing here is they're creating their own geodesics. Now the zap you can see here is a cold event. This dark event that happens here. And you saw it the last second there, and I'll pull up the super slow-mo. It's a dark, cold event that only could be seen in the thermal like this, which indicates that this is more equivalent to a black hole. It's not an explosion. It's an endothermic event. Energy is being absorbed as opposed to shot outwards. And I'm probably not saying that correctly. So let's look at some other videos here as well of this. And we can also take a look real quick at the time. So that second video was received June 5th, and it was posted June 12th. So this tells us a little bit of information as well. The first video did not make enough of a splash. That was May 19th. So 3 weeks later, they send the second video. Previously submitted satellite footage. So they're showing us another angle now. And this one, that didn't take long for him to post at all. So he was already probably convinced at this point that the footage was legitimate and just needed to be told, okay, here's a second video. Go shoot this one out there as well, because it's absolute proof. And keep in mind, this was May 19th for the first one. Now take a look at this. Regicideanon makes a Twitter account May 22nd, 3 days later. Hello, Twitter, my first tweet. 3 days after the footage was uploaded. Please spread this video before it's pulled. And what does he tag? MH370. Bingo. Look at the first things. It just says airliner and UFOs. You just left out the MH370. In fact, maybe he wasn't even told that this is MH370. Because Regicideanon, again, would be like us, have no idea what we're even looking at's real, have no idea what the context is. Probably didn't look at the satellite coordinates that we saw in there to be able to know where the location was, the Nicobar Islands. So, let's look at this version, okay? So this is... I can't stand the music on this, so we're going to have to turn that off. Okay, so something who's a Redditor, created this visualization here, which will prove to us that what we're looking at is 3D stereoscopic, meaning two different cameras. You'll be able to see the parallax effect very closely. So what they're going to do first is assign a side, A and B side here, and so that we can flip between them very quickly. So first of all, overlay them over top of each other. Boom. Now we're only looking at the A side. Okay, so in order to do this, he's going to basically switch quickly. And now look, when you switch, you can see the parallax effect, right? Very obvious parallax effect right there. This tells us we're looking at two different angles, okay? So we're looking at two different cameras here. You can even see it, and he zooms in here to make it even more apparent that when you switch back and forth between A and B, you can see that the plane does not move, but we can see the motion of the parallax effect, right? So this proves to us that what we're looking at is 3D stereoscopic imagery, which at this point, I don't think I've ever seen anyone even try to fake something like this. And again, they're showing you that the parallax effect by switching back and forth here. So this video absolutely proves that what we're seeing is two different cameras shooting down. Notice as well in the background of this footage, there's no shadows anywhere. We don't even see a shadow from the plane, which would indicate that what we're looking at here is nighttime in a false color IR. So a lot of these capabilities are capabilities we didn't even know about, especially not in 2014. We would never have been able to guess. In 2023, we have a little bit of a basis. And so the rest of this is pretty much him just showing all the parallax effect, which is very obvious. I mean, we can see the cloud volume change and the angle change based on which camera we're looking at here. So again, proof that this is 3D stereoscopic. So the leaker, when they were leaking this, they knew from the first video they had absolute proof that we would be able to figure out what two satellites have to be right next to each other in outer space to be able to provide the data to create this 3D stereoscopic visual. And we did. It's USA 229, NROL 34. It's a NOS ocean surveillance satellite. So again, we see that parallax effect, okay? So let's answer a couple questions and see what we got going on here. So I think we just showed you where the camera came from. In terms of shakiest evidence, at this point, all the evidence has been pretty much conclusive. I think we've proven every aspect of the videos to be real, including the fire. We're using all of the witnesses, all of them. All the witnesses point to the fire scenario, and it blows my mind that that was missed. I think the ping data might be the sketchiest part, but we can look at that as well. Weirdly enough, at the exact time where this happens, there's a huge anomaly in the ping data. There's two smoke trails because there's two exhaust ports at the landing gear bay for the heat exhaustion. Let's see, what else? Okay, so why did it not get attention? So if you're like me, some people actually saw some of the footage. I saw the thermal footage back in 2014, and I just didn't think that it could possibly be real because I didn't even know what drone footage looked like. You know, so when I was looking at this in 2014, I didn't know. I just closed it out. I thought, this is like, what is this supposed to be, right? But now in 2023, we have a huge basis to understand that this could be real because we've seen the 2017 leaks. We've seen the Trump satellite picture that he posted in 2019, and that told us what satellite capabilities might be like. We know that superconductivity, if we are not at it, we're at the verge of it from a public perspective, looking at LK99. And I know that's very controversial for some people, but I strongly believe that we are at least on the verge of superconductivity, if not already there from the public perspective. And then AI, when we're looking at that triangle pattern and those orb movements, that does not look like something that people are flying. It's not aliens flying around in that. That's a computer program running it. So let's look at this version real quick of that same thermal, but with the thermal layer stripped out manually by editing software. Now you can clearly see these trails, and you can clearly see they're in front of the orbs, pulling the orbs forward here. How would someone even think to fake this? Why would someone even fake it like that? That's just too unusual. This is what we're looking at here is superconductivity, and these orbs are creating their own geodesics, their own gravity, essentially. And that's why they seem to just be free floating throughout the sky. And that's why they can travel at Mach 3 speeds with no significant resistance. So that's really impressive stuff just watching it. Now, we've took the 3D satellite video just to even prove it further, and we actually were able to convert it to 3D. You can put on blue and red glasses, and you can watch this in 3D if you want. And we actually were able to show that these are how the systems work. They actually do 3D when the intelligence people are watching this, tracking planes, because it gives them depth perception. It helps them better to understand what they're looking at. And they're looking at a much bigger field of view here. So they would see the drone. The drone's just cropped out a screen there at the beginning. There might be other assets too. So this is what the military uses when they are doing, battlefield awareness for, whatever operations they want to conduct. And this user here just cropped it out for the most part. It's hard to see here, but in the very bottom, there are some satellite coordinates as well. Those satellite coordinates indicate the Nicobar Islands. So let's answer a couple other questions. Yeah, so deployed to save the plane. We'll get to that. We'll get to the plane stuff in terms of deployed to save the plane. So widespread AI is what's basically, it would take so much computer processing to create that triangle pattern. And what they're doing there is it's tracking the plane. The center of mass is the plane there. So it's clearly involved in the zap that we see later on. The amount of data, the amount of control to have that precision, to me requires AI. The type of processing that we see right now where people use ChatGPT because humans cannot process that information that quickly. Good questions though. Yeah, none of the big UFOologists have touched this. That's a good point. And I think the longer they stay silent, the more credibility they lose, because the reality is if anyone's for disclosure, you're looking at it straight in the face. What I've been doing here is how disclosure should come about. Shouldn't be any bullshit of stringing people along or what have you. It should just be a matter of here's the information, I'm going to spread it far and wide, right? And here's the proof. I'm not going to make you go search for buried UFOs and other kind of nonsense like that. I'm just going to tell you straight up what I know, right? And what we can prove. Let's see what else we got here. I've reached out to everybody that I have access to on Twitter or what have you and sent them messages. So far, none of the big people have replied at all. And again, like I said, the longer they stay quiet, the more credibility they lose, because why would they not be interested in this? Especially people that are like looking at all kinds of esoteric stuff, but for some reason they don't want to look at this. Oh, okay. We're looking at 3 orbs going around a plane here. Like, what more do you really, really want at this point from 2 different cameras that are the most advanced military cameras in the world for 2014? Metabunk, have they reopened the case? They're not going to reopen the case because they gave up. Most of the reason why they gave up is they confirmed so much of the videos to be real. We had somebody there confirm the satellite was correct. We had them confirm that the turn was accurate as well in Metabunk. One person in Metabunk actually confirmed the smoke as well, and they got mass downvoted because presumably the liars on Metabunk knew that what we were looking at was smoke, and they didn't want people to realize that what we were looking at smoke. They wanted to argue that it was contrails. And again, just for the the smoke again is coming from 2 exhaust vents that are near the landing gear, right? And we can see that from the heat signature in there. What about the Reddit post that exhibits 30 to 24 frames per second while the orbs do not? That sounds like nonsense. The answer is you can read that part right at the beginning. Where is my thing? It's not CGI here. So how did we prove that it's real? This actually happened really early on. You can see the date here's August 17th. This is 2 days before the videos were banned off of Reddit for being discussed. We already proved that they were real. And what this proof does is it proves that you can't debunk these with prosaic debunks by claiming this looks like this. Because what we proved is that the satellite footage is a Citrix session connected to the actual database. What that means is we're looking at real footage no matter what. So, and this is also pretty important. KCIMC, who's also a debunker, who actually connected on this, they were so upset that they put a disclaimer trying to claim that the videos are fake. That's how upset this user got, despite the fact that they helped prove it to be real. The zap is real too. The zap is accurately illuminating the clouds in the foreground and in the background. So this basically shows that what we're seeing from a zap effect here is also real as well. So that's a huge component to this whole thing. Because otherwise the government especially wants people to be convinced that somehow that the zap is not real, so that they can come out and say, yeah, this footage is real, and come up with some excuse for why they've been sitting on it, right? We're not going to let them do that. It's all real, unfortunately. Especially unfortunately people who don't want to believe. So without going through all of this here, what I'll say is that this kind of proves, if you want to go through all this digital forensic stuff here, there's a ton of stuff that it would have had to do to make this. And if this will then be corroborated by both the Marvel visual effects expert who we have on the record and the Top Gun Maverick expert who actually posted on Reddit as well, how they actually had to cheat in the movie they made in 2022. And they're not sure how someone would have been able to create this in 2014. Now, here's the part where you want it. The video's encoded in standard 24 frames per second. And the difference here, this is what proved it to be real, is that the background's 6 frames per second. So people actually thought that this might be a situation where, because there's a difference, that it might prove it to be fake. And again, the debunkers thought this as well. And this ended up proving the videos to be real. Is that you can also see the mouse situation here. People pointed out it's like a strain gauge type joystick, or really someone's like holding something down to move the larger screen and not have the mouse move. And then Tacky NG, who's somebody who, I don't necessarily get along with anymore because they were trying to tell me that you can't prove anything to be real or not. And that's not how anything works. Yes, we can prove things to be real. And that's how investigations work all the time. That's how we convict people of crimes. Basically went ahead and took all that information up there and proved it can't be CGI. So the Citrix session's running at 24 frames per second. There's a screen capture terminal running at a resolution of 30 frames per second, but that the streaming remote virtual session's at 24 frames per second, which pretty much makes this convert down to 24 frames per second. And then we can see this remotely navigating around this very, very large field of view, which is what a satellite would be able to do, right? Very large field of view, 6 frames per second. So what this does is this proves that what we're looking at here is a connection to a Citrix session that's looking at a real satellite spy database. And it's got the 3D stereoscopic effect that we've already proven as well. So that's very important. It proves that what we're looking at is legitimate. Now, let's see what else we've got here. Yes, if Joe Rogan wanted to get on this, like that would be the ideal situation, right? Because he's got, 10 million people that follow. The point here is we've proven it to be real. The reason why I'm throwing myself out there is that I can easily convince anyone that has a relatively open mind that what we're looking at here is real. I mean, look at all this proof that we've got, right? I would not be able to come up with all of this if this was somehow a hoaxed video. That we wouldn't be able to glean all this real information from it. So if we get to someone like Joe Rogan, then the whole world will know it's true. And the reason why I'm 100% convinced of that is I already went on the Confessionals, which was a small podcast. It's probably getting a lot bigger now. And I did my whole video appearance with them. And the response is overwhelming. Even people that were skeptics have come to me and said, wow, you were able to present the evidence in a way where it's damning. And so imagine if we scale that up times 100, right? That video right now has over 120,000 views on YouTube. Imagine if we take that to Rogan, who would have millions. Everybody will know that the government lied. And I think that's probably why he might be afraid to push this, right? Like the government will actually push back on him for trying to expose this potentially. Maybe even try to deplatform him for it. Because what we're looking at here is this is most likely classified footage that the government has not officially declassified. So for anyone who has an NDA, they can't talk about this footage. They're legally not allowed to. And that helps to explain why so many people are quiet on it. They're not legally allowed to talk about it. I don't have an NDA. And until somebody tells me this footage is real and I'm not allowed to talk about it, then I have no reason to not talk about it. So let's see what else we have on questions here. Yeah, so if for somebody to have faked this, because like a lot of people want to say, well, I could have made this, I could copy this, right? But again, there's nothing to copy it from. This is an original work. It's not like it was out there and somebody was recreating it. It's not out there at all. And the reason why it's not out there is because this is real classified footage. So good question on that one. Have I been threatened? No, I have not been threatened, although I have had a group of, an extremely coordinated group of people who have been trying to dox every aspect of my life to try to figure out how they can discredit me in whatever way. But I completely expected all of that. Everything I've done up until this point has been, measured from my respect, and I knew how this would play out. I saw people like Bob Lazar come out, and personally, I believe him. I don't know that he can prove his case, but I personally believe him. And I saw what they did to him, right? They just completely discredited him. And go ahead and refresh, by the way, if you guys are not able to see. So they discredited the hell out of him. So when I saw this proof and I realized that I have a security clearance, that makes it almost impossible for the government to discredit me. Not totally impossible. They'll try to find a way, right? And so that's part of the reason why I decided to be like the person who's the spokesperson for this. For a lot of other people, there might be easy ways to discredit them, and then they'll discredit the footage, they'll discredit the case. But for me, it's a lot more difficult. So what they've tried to do, there's been a literal coordinated group of at least 15 to 20 people, perhaps more, who've tried to go through every aspect of my social fingerprints, anything they can try to find to try to discredit me. They tried to use a GoFundMe. I addressed that. They've tried to claim that I'm harassing family members, which is total nonsense as well. So these people are coordinated, and their whole goal is to try to discredit me, which goes to show their intentions, right? They're not trying to discredit the evidence. They're trying to discredit me personally. But I have not been threatened, and I haven't been afraid of the government since the first week. After I started getting the evidence out there to a wide audience, I realized that if they did do something to me, then it's just going to prove everything to be real. And that's still true now as well. But even if something did happen to me, I would not be, I would have no regrets. This to me, looking at this and what this all implies, is absolutely worth my life for anything that anyone would try to do to me. Yes, it looks like a targeting system. I agree. Buffer not working. I try to fix that, but again, I'm not great at this stuff, so we might just have to try to make do for this stream right now. Yeah, so a lot of people want to think that what we're looking at is non-human intelligence. So let me pull up another video here again. Let's look at, this is, I think, the higher version of the higher quality of the satellite one. So this is the one that doesn't show the 3D stereoscopic. Oh, that is the 3D stereoscopic one. Let's see. Wait, why is this not working? Okay, well, we'll just look at this one again. So a lot of people, when we look at this, want to think this has got to be aliens, right? But bad news, guys, it's not. They're filming this before these orbs even show up. So they either got really, really lucky, or this is just a U.S. military operation. And again, what we're looking at here, there aren't little aliens flying around in these orbs. These orbs are actually likely having what we're seeing as an orb is possibly just an energy field around them. These are not the same as the metallic orbs you guys are seeing in UFOlogy. These are different. What this is some type of probably very small device that has an energy field around it that's allowing it to float freely throughout this air. Now, it is a trick, because when you look at it, you see this triangle pattern. Everyone thinks that because we see that triangle pattern so often, and I think that when we do see that triangle pattern, when we see that out in UFOlogy, you kind of see them blink in and out and all these videos, and I've seen a lot of those videos. That's not like what's going on here. This is a targeting system that we're seeing here. And the pattern is too exact to have anybody flying this, non-human intelligence or not. So what all the evidence points to is that this is actually an operation. And again, the fact that it's a fire, and we've proven that it's a fire, also indicates it's an operation. You have to be very careful about ascribing human motivations to a non-human intelligence. I think that the biggest mistake people make is that they think aliens, non-human intelligence, are going to act like we are. They're going to think like we are. If a being was evolved on a different planet, there's no reason to believe it's even going to have like a conscience and believe in morality, right? So this idea that these benevolent beings are coming down to save the plane, there's no basis for it. But more importantly, there's no evidence for it either. We do have evidence that this is potentially us, U.S. technology, and we have a motive. The people that were on board this plane, the 20 Freescale semiconductor scientists, they have been linked to superconductivity, which is the technology that we see on display here. So there's a lot of evidence that what we're seeing here is somehow our technology. Now, whether or not we've come about that and the military just happens to be 50 years more advanced than the public is, or it's reverse engineered, I leave that up to you. My personal opinion is that this has to be reverse engineered technology for the same reasons why people think it's non-human intelligence. It just looks much like what we would see from UFOs, right? And so I think that that's very important. So let's take a look at some of the other questions, and then we'll move on to some of the other parts. Yeah, no, they're not going to be happy that I've uncovered this for sure. But again, if they do anything, then it'll just prove everything to be real, right? I've put myself out there on so many spaces, podcasts. You're listening to me now. You can tell that I'm just a normal person. So if anything were to happen to me, it would just prove everything to be real, and I would have no regrets. Oh boy. So yeah, okay. People that are claiming that their brothers or their cousins or whatever work with satellites are full of crap. So don't listen to that. Because first of all, they wouldn't be able to tell you if they were real. This is classified information. They literally cannot tell you that. If they told you that what they were looking at was real, they would be arrested just like Edward Lynn was. So Be careful of people who are lying, especially, you know, in our chat, on Reddit, etc. You know, there's a lot of people that are going to try whatever they can to cast doubt on the videos, but the evidence speaks for itself, and that's what we're going to follow. Let's see here. Let's see. Now, let's see what else we've got here. Okay. Where are the people that were on board? Okay, so we don't know where they went, right? We don't know where the people went. The problem is we're seeing this plane disappear. And let's look at the slow-mo zap here of this as well while I'm talking about this. We see the plane disappear, but we don't know where the plane's reappearing. And that's something that's still like, you know, do you have to have orbs on the other side to make the plane reappear or not? Really hard to tell. Now, looking at this, we can actually see in the last frame, the plane gets dark along the edges here as well, which I think, in my personal opinion, may indicate that these orbs actually are creating some kind of field around the plane, which is allowing for the whole plane to undergo what we would call macroscopic decoherence. And we'll have to take a look at the double slit experiment for you guys to really get a better idea of what macroscopic decoherence really means. But the idea behind macroscopic decoherence is that the plane is being reverted back to a wave function. It's going from a definitive point in space-time to a probabilistic point in space-time, which now allows it for traveling faster than the speed of light, which is how we come across things like quantum entanglement, quantum teleportation, non-locality is what they call it. And all of these things emerge from the double slit experiment, is realizing that if we look at the particles being shot through the slits, it changes the way they act. The only way it can be doing that is that they're somehow acting faster than the speed of light. And what we call that is the wave function collapsing. So what we're seeing here is the opposite of that. We're seeing the wave function be rebuilt, which is really far out there science, but it is supported now, only in the last few years, supported by actual science, actual scientific papers and experiments that have been done in the public. Now, has it been done to a 777? You know, we're looking at the first time right here. But notice these things are converging. These orbs are converging. You can actually see them flatten, right about here. Look at them flattening. This could indicate that this is gravitational lensing at play. Personally, what I think is happening here, and this is my own interpretation, just my own interpretation, I'm not an expert, is that like if you take two magnets and jam them together really hard, those magnets are going to go flying apart. You have three magnets. 3 is the minimum number you need to be able to create a flat portal effect, essentially, in 2D space. And so I think that that's what's happening here. Is they're somehow using some type of amplification as they converge like this to create the zap. And then there's actually a frame. Let me see if I can pull it up. It's hard to see. We'll have to show it. But there's a frame where you can see the tail of the plane sticking out before the whole plane is enveloped by this whole zap that we see here. And again, point out this zap looks nothing like the VFX. Nothing at all like the VFX. It was a very sloppy attempt to lie. And the way that they did that is they tried to compare one frame. Because if you tried to compare the whole effect, it'd be extremely obvious that it's not the same. So it's extremely disingenuous attempts to debunk the footage. Let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, so if it's superconductors, what are they doing? It's basically teleportation. You know, in layman's terms, what we're seeing is teleportation. And again, it's rebuilding the wave function. And that rebuilding of the wave function now gives the plane a probabilistic point in space-time. And that's what allows what we would see as teleportation. Now, if you want to be really detailed, what's happening is the plane is somehow being converted to a Bose-Einstein condensate. The idea behind that is it's going from fermions, which fermions are, everything you see is basically made of fermions. And the reason why we would see something like this cup here is that all the fermions have to be in different places in space and time. But bosons don't have that requirement. Bosons can be scrunched down into a single point. And that's why we have things like lasers, okay? And so if we have a laser, those are bosons. So there was actually a YouTube video that was posted by Anton recently that proved that you can convert fermions to bosons. Now, only certain elements are supposedly able to do that, but I think the science we're seeing here is now showing there's another way to do that, where you can do it at a macroscopic level. And that's what we'll be digging into more. Let's see what else we've got here. The vacuum force of the orbiting objects. I can't speak too much about that and the twister and the spinner effect that we're seeing there. I think a lot of people have mentioned that's a toroidal, I'm probably saying that wrong, effect. But you know, I'm just an amateur when it comes to physics. I'm learning a lot, but I'm certainly not an expert, especially when it comes to stuff like math and mathematical proofs. I do have links to some of my mathematical proofs. I do, and we can look at those later. But you know, I'm not an expert at those. I won't be going anything psychic related or anything remote viewing. That's not where I'm at personally in my, kind of life at this point. There's not any way where you could even really, link that directly evidence-wise to our case. So you have to be very careful, because how do you determine whether or not someone's telling the truth or whether they're just making up a story, right? It comes down to belief, and I'm not into belief. What I'm into is hard evidence and stuff that we can see and we can confirm. In terms of contacting Edward Lynn, I don't really want to speak too much about that. I don't think we should be trying to harass anyone like that. And Matt, keep in mind, this person took a plea deal. They're likely legally not allowed to talk about the videos, okay? So if we were to bug them, we're putting them in legal jeopardy. So we do not want to be harassing them in general. Although what I would say is that if Edward Lynn's out there and can find a safe way to get information out, then he should, because as we can see here, we've already uncovered everything, and we need to get this guy a presidential pardon. Okay. Let's see what else we've got here. Yeah, and just to be clear, this is not conjecture. This is hard evidence that we're looking at here. This is proof. Okay. This is not conjecture in any way, shape, or form. So a lot of people want to claim that you can't know things. Again, that's not how it works. We have hard evidence. We're looking at it. We've built more evidence here than has ever been used in the history of the world to convince anyone of murder or probably any crime ever. We have 2 videos. We know the location, the time. We have a witness who is there as well. In addition to 10 other witnesses who will confirm the lithium-ion battery fire scenario. We have corroborating evidence that the fire scenario is consistent with what would happen, in addition to the orange glowing plane. So again, we have absolute proof that this is what happened. It's not conjecture. Let's see what else we've got. Yes, the drone and satellite footages are both perfectly in sync. So where's my side-by-side? Huh. I actually didn't post the side-by-side here. That's interesting. Let me pull up the side-by-side for you guys really quick, just so we can take a look. And then I want to dig into some of the other stuff. So let's see. Where's my videos? Let's see, is this one going to work? Oh yeah, okay. So you guys should be able to see this now. So this will let you see that what we're looking at here is perfectly in sync with one another. So you can see that first orb's coming in, and keep in mind this was manually put side by side, so it might be slightly off, but you can tell that they're in sync here. I mean, the formation here is just so weird watching it, right? And you can tell these things are not being affected by gravity. They're free floating throughout space. You can see them again, the heat signature, you can see spinning on their axis there. You can see that heat signature spinning on these orbs. And now they've got this vertical orientation, getting ready for the teleportation, and boom, zap, okay? So these videos are incredible. I've probably watched them 1,000 times, maybe more. I recommend you guys watch them a few more times as well if you want. Now let me answer a few more questions, and then I want to look into some more stuff here. Yeah, and again, I already discussed the thing about why it's not UAPs, so you can go back and go through the recording there, but the intention, the fact that the orbs we're recording before that, the fact that we can't attribute human motivations to non-human intelligence, and we've already shown that there was a fire emergency event here, everything points to this being humans that are trying to save other humans. And there's just simply no evidence that what we're looking at here is non-human intelligence for any reason. We can actually explain all the science behind it as well. So we don't need non-human intelligent explanations for this, and I prefer simpler explanations. So if people think that there's a non-human intelligence and they want to try to prove that, feel free, right? I've put all the evidence out there. So use whatever evidence you think would confirm that and make the case for it. Absolutely, go for it. I want people to be able to believe whatever they want to believe. And if people want to come up with other stories, please go ahead. One of the criticisms too is, why are we always hearing from Ashton? Well, I'm literally the only person who's pushing the evidence forward, pushing the case forward, and building a story. If other people want to do that, I've always been open that they should do that. And I put all the evidence out there publicly, so you can use the evidence that I put out there to come up with your own story if you want as well. But keep in mind that my story is my story for how this works out. So don't steal my story. You can support my story, but come up with your own story if you want, especially the debunkers. Now keep in mind, to debunk this, you now have to come up with a story where somehow Regicide Anon was involved in faking this video. Because otherwise, why would they put that the received date is March 12th, 2014, right? The only reason why they would do that is if it's just legit, that's when they got it. You have to come up with a reason for why they would lie about that. Otherwise, your time to make the videos is 4 days, which no one will, everyone will agree there's 4 days is not enough time to even barely begin making these. Okay, let's see what else we've got. What if it was China? Okay, so that's an interesting thought, right? What if it's another nation? The problem is kind of the same with the non-human intelligence. There's just no evidence for it. Did China just send some orbs out of nowhere? I mean, the United States government was tracking the plane. They had to deploy the drone to get into position. They're the ones filming it. So everything points to the United States government being the one who did this. Additionally, China released a satellite picture like the few days later that almost indicates that like they knew something happened, but they weren't able to prove it. And the way it was reported in Western media was that, oh, this might be debris. But if you look at the picture, it looks like 3 orbs. So I'm just going to right now quickly Google satellite China MH370. That's all you have to Google, and you'll get the picture. And then I'm just going to press images, and I'm going to go ahead and try to link it up here for us. Okay, let me see. Did that show up? Yeah. Okay. Now look at this. I mean, does this look like debris? Look at that. That looks like 3 orbs to me. I mean, so maybe this is, maybe this isn't. I tried to look and see if this cloud pattern matches. It's really hard to tell. But to me, this is China going, we don't have high definition like you do, but we know you did something to this plane. That's what it tells me when I look at this. Now, back in 2014, I had no idea why they were showing this picture. But now with retrospect and knowing what we know about the footage, it makes me think that they did know something. Okay, so good questions there. Let's see what other questions we got, because I want to focus on the questions, and then but I do want to kind of go through some more of this stuff. In terms of covert organizations, the Wakanda theory, as I like to call it, there's just not any evidence for why there would be, this other secretly super advanced organization that's doing this, right? That's why I call it the Wakanda theory. There's another organization that's out there. I mean, they're taking a huge risk to do this. So same question applies. Why are they doing this, right? And the United States government has a reason. They could either be trying to prevent these scientists from going to China, or like we've proven with the fire scenario, more likely they are simply trying to save these scientists. They're probably linked directly to the technology that we see. The whisper data. The whisper data is basically nonsense. What the whisper data tried to do is take the satellite pings that they know and then try to plan a route out, right? So first of all, if the satellite pings aren't accurate, then the whisper route data is automatically meaningless. The problem with the whisper route data is it's like trying to follow somebody with a white shirt, but everybody's got white shirts in a crowd. So you're going to get lost right away. I looked through all 300 pages of the whisper route, and there's stuff in there to make no sense whatsoever. It has the plane like hugging the coast of Indonesia. You're not on the ground. You're not in a boat. It doesn't make any sense why a plane would be hugging the coast. That's not how it works. It also has the plane doing a weird cutback, looking to see if anyone's behind it. This isn't a spy movie. You can't figure that out from looking at pings that the plane's looking to see if someone's behind it. And then probably the weirdest thing the whisper data has the plane in a holding pattern for like 25 minutes in the South Indian Ocean. That makes no sense at all, given the story of pilot suicide. Oh, he just decided to fly for 6 hours, then just do a holding pattern for a little bit. Like, what? What was really happening there is they had no data points, so they just came up with fake stuff to try to make it make sense. And I was all about the whisper data. If you believe in the whisper data, then you believe these footage is real, because the first piece here, vindication, you'll see that the very first proof was that the plane goes right through the whisper route data. Here it is right here. So this is where we were trying to figure out which of these 2 points is correct. We know now that it's the Andaman Sea up here. And it all lines up there. The witness is there. Everything lines up. The time, 1840 UTC. Initially, I thought it had to be down here because I trusted the data. So I thought this plane had flown down here, and then somehow somewhere down here, the video got taken. And you'll see if I go back there that there's the whisper out page right here. And look at those coordinates. It's right next to the coordinates if there's a minus sign in front of it. Right next to it. Like it went right through those southern coordinates. It goes right through these southern coordinates down here. almost perfectly. I thought there's no way, that can't be a coincidence. It has to be it, right? Turned out it was a coincidence, actually. The plane, this whole southern Indian Ocean thing is just a complete narrative. Complete nonsense. Now, here's a picture of the coordinates, or the coordinates that we see in the satellite footage, right? So we can actually make these out. So if you look at the debunks that are out there, the ones that are the ones if you Google them, the Newsweek one says it's NROL 77. What are they talking about? NROL 22, you can see it right there. And if you try to argue it's a 3, well, you got to deal with this 3 right over here, that you can clearly see the 3 right here. So that's how we know this is actually 22 right here, NROL 22. Now, NROL 22 is called USA 184. And this was sent up in 2006, I believe. 2005 or 2006. It has a Millennia orbit, which is a very oblong orbit. And it sits around the North Pole most of the time. We actually were able to reverse engineer and figure out that this was at the North Pole looking down at our other satellite at the exact time where this happened at 1840 UTC. This is most likely a command satellite. They're logging into the database. They log into the command satellite. And we've proven that the SBIR system is like an internet network that communicates with all sorts of assets, satellites, drone, as well as other information as well, using something called the SIGINT, Signals Intelligence System. And this is how we found the leaker. The leaker has signals intelligence written all over their profile. So we were able to rule this out. And if you read my story of the evolving investigation, you'll figure out that, we moved away from this when we were able to confirm that the northern coordinates were correct. Okay, let's see what else we got. Yeah, converting to Penang is definitely an emergency. And they flew right over Penang Langkawi International Airport and then went to the Andaman Sea. Presumably, they actually had communications, and the communications have been classified to cover up what we see here. And that's where they rendezvous, right? Is at that point in the Nicobar Islands. Yeah, why are all these smart folks on one plane? That is really a big question, right? That's way too many people to be on the same plane, right? So I'm just going to switch up real quick and show you guys one of the most recent pieces here. Wow, 55,000 views on this one. Holy shit. So one of the ones I did yesterday, there's 2 important pieces. And one of them is this one called Freescale Superconductors. Okay, so this, I call it Freescale Superconductors. I'm being coy there, right? Freescale Semiconductors. They had 20 people on the plane. This is way too many people. Most companies have like a rule. You can only have 3 or 4 people on the same plane just for incidents like this, right? And you can see these were people that had a lot of technical background and experience, top quality engineers that we're dealing with here. This is a big deal to lose these people. And we found a 2005 National Security Agency report that basically was looking into commercial use of superconductivity. And Freescale Semiconductors is called out 9 times in this report. I put some excerpts here as well. They were aiming for industrial maturity by the 2010 to 2012 timeframe. That's 4 to 2 years before our events. And then at the bottom of the conclusion, without government investment, this will not happen. How much you want to bet they got that government investment, guys? And if they got that government investment, now the U.S. government has a motive to keep these people alive. Here's the report. Superconducting technology assessment by the National Security Agency. Let's go ahead and look. Freescale. 9 times. Freescale Semiconductors producing. Commercial pre-production at Freescale. I mean, they're looking into what Freescale is doing, and they're trying to figure out how close to superconductivity they are. Look at all this. Also, look at this. Motorola's semiconductor sector, now called Freescale Semiconductors. Motorola is the company they split from. Motorola is the ones whose batteries, lithium-ion batteries, burnt up. I mean, it seems like a lot of coincidences to me, guys. But that's just me. Okay, let's see what else we got here. What other questions? They claim the comms were shut off, but do we really know that the comms were shut off? That's a big thing. So it's pretty interesting. Yep, and good points there. So Rotary Motion has been in our Discord. So if he wants to help out with some of the information, please do. So let's look at some other information that we've got out here. How did we prove that the Nicobar Islands location was correct? So this is another one where we were able to prove, and we moved away from the southern route, okay? So initially, a guy named Mr. G. Wonk had originally kind of tried to show that it was the northern coordinates, but he did so in a pretty awkward way. So I tried to do it in a much clearer way. First, we could see all the coordinate shifts here. Okay, so if we map these coordinate shifts on a graph, you can see the problem down here. These are the 2 options. Oops. Okay, so either the plane is turning south into the east here, or it's turning north into the east here. This is the inverted part if there's a minus sign. So can you guys tell what the problem is right away? This one has the plane turning right? This one has the plane turning left. What direction is our plane turning in our videos? It's turning left in both videos. What this means is this is the only one that can be correct. The southern coordinates, or sorry, the northern coordinates, this route right here. So this indicates what we're looking at as the northern coordinates, and then what we're looking at visually is actually visually accurate to the coordinate shifts. It's going south into the east here. So this proves that our location is the Nicobar Islands. And also then we found a witness who was at that location who reported seeing the plane. What time did she report seeing the plane? 1840 UTC. Everything lined up to 1840 UTC. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the initial reports that came out right after the incident. So initially reports, all the initial reports said radar contact was lost at 1840 UTC. That changed weeks later when they released the radar data. They claimed it was 1822. All the initial reports said 1840 right at the end. That's the time our videos are happening. That's the time the witness saw the plane. Now, if you scroll down here, I'll just show you the images. I mean, look at this image. Lost contact at 240. This is 1840 UTC. This was the next day. All the initial reports were claiming that they lost contact at 1840. They had to lie. They had to cover it up. They had to pretend like it wasn't there. Here's an image of the satellite overlay from that. So I'll show you guys the video, the satellite video flyover as well. So we recreated USA 229, and it's exactly correct in the right spot. But before that, I want to show you the ping data. Look at this ping data. I went and looked at the real ping data, the official ping data on the SU log tab. You can look yourself. All the data is legit. Like all this data above here, there's dozens and dozens of rows that all look complete like this. You get to 1839, 1840 here, boom, it's just zeros. Nobody can tell me they looked at this data and went, no, there's nothing happened here. This is just normal. No chance. Something happened right at this time. It all lines up to 1840 UTC. So let's look at some media real quick. I'm going to do the flyover for you guys. So let's look at the flyover. Okay, so here's a recreation of the flyover. On the top of the screen up here, you can see the time. Let's watch this time. So we're 10 minutes before our event. You see this bubble over here? Most likely, this satellite sees way bigger than this bubble. Much, much bigger than this bubble, okay? This is just, I think we made it 1,000 kilometers. This probably sees many thousands of kilometers because it can see a very wide field of view. Notice there's these two satellites. USA 229 has two satellites that can create that stereoscopic effect that we see. So our satellites are floating along here, 1835, and now we're going to hit 1840 right in about 1 minute here, or 1839, that moment, like right here. So we're getting there, and we're looking right down at our point. At the same time that ping data happens, right here. Boom, there it is. Smoking gun right here. You're staring at it, folks. Satellites were in the exact right location to pull the data that they need to be able to build the satellite video that we see 3D stereoscopic. We're staring right at the coordinates. Now the plane is actually probably slightly outside this bubble, and that's why this bubble, the battlefield's view is much bigger. The plane's probably right here where my mouse is. This is where Kate T's boat is. And so she sees the plane going right around her. So it's right about here probably. And the other thing too about this is I want to show you the SIBRS system. So people will say, well, why is there not more apparent movement? You know, if this satellite's moving that quickly, you know, how are they cheating it to make it look like it's kind of like more stationary than it really is? We found that out too. SIBRS mission. I love this SIBRS video. This is like my favorite video.
Global persistent infrared surveillance continues to be a critical national security space mission. The Cold War focus on strategic ICBM
this is what they're doing all the time on the globe. So these outside ones, these are geostationary satellites. These ones are super far away. So I'm just going to pause it right here. These are geostationary. These are 40,000 kilometers away. These are your Millennia orbit ones with these oblong orbits. They're our command satellites. And then you have the low Earth orbit ones that aren't really present here, that are ones that we see that are low Earth, that like our USA's 229. And look at them scanning. Look at the huge field of view that they can scan.
systems has expanded.
So what they're doing in here is they're
short
scanning this
and
information
mid-range
and then they're
ballistic
building
missile threats.
what is essentially like a
Defense
Google
Support
Earth
Program maintains
that
the
is
legacy
3D,
Cold War monitoring
3D
to warn of
stereoscopic in some
ICBM missile
cases,
launches against
where they
the
can then
US.
track
The
missiles,
replacement program is the
planes, boats,
space-based
anything they want in a
infrared
huge
system,
battlefield
SIBIX,
awareness.
which is already provided to infrared
So look at
sensor
this. I think this
payloads
was
in
actually,
highly
I think
elliptical
this video is
orbits
kind of
or HEO.
old in general.
The SIBIX
But look at what they're
program
doing
is
here.
also
They're just doing
deploying
IR
multiple
video
spacecraft
scanning of the whole planet.
geosynchronous Earth orbit, or GEO.
So this explains everything
Each
about
has
our
two
satellite video,
independent
exactly why it
infrared
looks the way that it
sensors.
does,
One is a
how they're able to
scanner
get it so that
dedicated
it
to
does,
missile
you
warning
remove the
and full
atmospheric
Earth
interference.
monitoring.
They're using the
The other
SIBIX system.
sensor is a
They're basically using a
taskable
computer
steroid
program
that
that's taking the
focuses
data
on
from the
selected
satellites
regions.
and putting it
Each
together.
pair of sensors
I mean, look at
act
this.
simultaneously and independently
This is
of
just
each other,
amazing. I
providing
mean,
a
it's scary
robust,
because this was 9 years
testable
ago. So
infrared platform.
every time I walk outside now, I'm like,
SIBIX
might as well
is the
wave up to the
nation's
satellite.
next
They can be
generation
watching you. And here's the thing:
infrared surveillance.
they can pull back the video
The
recording
program has
anytime they
already
want.
proven
They
its
don't have to be
value
actively
with
looking at you.
successful HEO
They can be like, hey, what was
payloads
Ashton
on
doing,
orbit.
last
With
week?
deployment of the
And they just pull up the
GEO
location and just be
spacecraft, SIBIX will
looking
be
at
an
me.
unprecedented
Right?
resource
Look at this. This
for
is
the
full
nation's
scanning of the
global,
whole globe.
taskable, and persistent
And this was whenever they
infrared
set this up
monitoring center.
many times, many years ago. So we think that that system went online back in 2005. Or pretty early on, 2005, that type of time frame. And so that's our smoking gun right there, is the USA 229 flyover that we saw. Okay. So let me see what else we got here. Let's see. They're not contrails again, guys. We're looking at smoke. Okay. So smoke is going to dissipate and move around in the air, right? So there's nothing unusual about the way that smoke moves. It's definitely 100% legit. Some people try to claim that there's some sort of weird jitteriness, and that's due to the fact that if you use editing software to stabilize this, then you're gonna have artifacts happen, and that's what occurred with the jittery motion. Is people use stabilizing software, and then they try to claim that that debunks it. You can look at it like we've just looked at it 3 times. There's nothing that's unusual in those videos. And again, we've already proven it's a Citrix session logged in. So prosaic debunks don't work. There's no such thing as it doesn't look good enough to me. We've already proven it's a real Citrix session logged in. So let's see. What else we got here? Radar range on Diego Garcia. Good question. It's been reported that Diego Garcia has radar range of 3,000 miles. What that would mean is that they could track this plane easily from the point it took off, the whole route, right? So that's another reason why there's no chance that they weren't tracking this plane. Even before I saw these videos, I knew the U.S. government had to know more about it, okay? Let me see. Now, okay, let's talk real quickly about why this plane did not crash into the South Indian Ocean, okay? And do I have that? I think this one will have the information on there. So this plane, objectively, I'm going to state this as a statement of fact, did not crash into the South Indian Ocean. So the first reasons right here, the SOSA system, which is the system that heard the Titan sub pop, and the Navy lied about it for 5 days while on CNN you're watching oxygen counters go down, and then after 5 days later said, oh yeah, we heard it pop, immediately. The SOSA system would have heard this. If they're detecting a tiny sub pop near the Titanic, they're going to detect a 777 crashing into the ocean, guys. So they would have heard it. They would have known right away where it happened and when it happened. It would have been no question and would have found it right away. You also cannot have a no debris field for a 777 crashing into the ocean. 777 crashing into the ocean, there's going to be bodies everywhere, luggage everywhere, pieces of the plane everywhere. We would have seen it the next day from our satellites and various other things. Remember that Wagner Russia guy's jet? He had a tiny private jet. They had the debris field the next day on satellite imagery, okay? So they definitely were going to catch a 777 crashing into the ocean. Not possible for it to not leave a debris field. SOSA system doesn't detect it. Now, I said the wrong system here. JORN is actually the radar system in Australia. The radar system in Australia, though, should have seen the plane if it went into the South Indian Ocean. They didn't see it either. Indonesia also had a radar system that should have seen the plane, also did not see it. Western Australia has hydrophones, and so does Diego Garcia. None of these heard any type of impact into the ocean. So again, completely impossible for this plane to have crashed into the South Indian Ocean. They would have detected it on radar. They would have detected it on two different hydrophone systems, and the SOSA system would have detected it. Not just that, there was 19 family members that claimed that they could call the cell phones of the passengers. 19, not 1 or 2, 19, okay? So let's go to this one. Proof that the satellite, and one person proved it right here. They're calling the phone. This is a recording of them proving it. The phone's ringing in this. This is a Chinese-only reported news station. They're calling their passenger phone and it's ringing. You know, that doesn't work. You guys want to test it out? Go ahead and have somebody turn off their phone and give it a call. It does not ring. CNN tried to have some expert come on and claim that this could happen. Yeah, go ahead and prove it, okay? Total bullshit. If a phone is underwater for even like, I think 30 minutes or so, especially in salt water, it's going to die. And I believe after it goes underneath like a couple feet of water, you're not going to be able to get a signal. Plus, I actually have images of how far the cell phone towers extend. They don't extend out into the South Indian Ocean. So there's no chance that you would be able to call phones like this if they're in the bottom of the ocean, and especially not 19 of them. And they signed a statement. So if you go down here, 19 families signed a joint statement confirming they were able to make phone calls that were connecting to the missing passengers without an answer. That's a lot of phones calling, guys. Why would they not look into this? You'd be able to trace this and confirm that this is real, right? So the fact they didn't look into this, super sketchy. And again, it all points to the same thing, the cover-up, right? Okay, good question. Let's see what else we've got here. Sorry, I don't know what program you're talking about. The orange lights flashing around taking pictures. Oh, yeah, so the large scans, yeah, probably those large scans are more generalized, the ones that are super far out from that SIBR system compared to the low Earth orbit ones, right? We're probably much higher quality. That's probably how we're getting that 3D stereoscopic visuals from those low Earth orbit USA 229s that are going down very low. Now, since then, they've added a lot more. So let me show you guys this as well. And this is how we were able to find out naval ocean surveillance. So if you Google Nation Ocean Surveillance Satellite, I'll go ahead and pull this up. I was trying to figure out what satellites it could be while people were modeling them. And so we were kind of working in tandem to figure out which satellites this could be, because I knew that we'd be able to figure out the satellite situation. I didn't know we'd be able to figure out as much as we did. So you can find about these naval ocean surveillance satellites, and what are they used for? Electronic transmissions from ships. And they're in low Earth orbit here. Cluster satellites. So these are generally more than one satellite, right? Now, if we go down and scroll down here, you can look at all of them. These are the older ones. We needed something a lot newer, and these were the ones that were in triplicate. So we really need ones that are in 2000 and beyond, and probably even like 2010 and beyond, because we're seeing some pretty advanced capabilities here. So we looked at some of these as well. We looked at actually all of them in general. But notice there's not that many. Like, this is not a lot. And once we got down here, we pretty much narrowed it down to one of these two right here, USA 238 or USA 229. These are the ones we were thinking because we looked at the Trump leak, which let me pull that up as well. So you just Google Trump satellite leak. And I spelt it wrong, but it doesn't matter. Let me pull this up here. Look at this. So this satellite they were able to figure out is USA 224. And USA 224 was also sent up in 2011. So when I saw this, I said, wow, that looks very similar to what we are seeing in terms of optical capability or IR capability. Now, the big thing here is you can see a huge shadow on this. We can't see any big shadows or any shadows at all in ours, which indicate this is daytime, but ours is not daytime. So the people that reverse engineered this had a much easier job than we did because they could actually tell the time of the day based on this shadow here. Versus us, we had to like literally look up every single satellite that's out there. So if you look, you see USA 229. There it is, right? And you can see it has an unnamed satellite right next to it as well. This is launch NROL 34. So this is our satellite that we modeled. This one, 238, is not in a different location, and then the rest of these are from 2015 or beyond. So going back to that debunk, the one debunk said NROL 77. That is obvious nonsense. We're looking at 22. The debunk that copied from claimed it was NROL 33. That's also incorrect because we could tell it's not threes, it's twos. So all the official debunks, if I go Google them right now, MH370, what do I want to look up? Debunk or something like that? Yeah, let's pull this one up here. Let's just look at this art together. This was the first one that was out there before we started investigating this France 24 one. Right, so if you look at this debunk, they try to claim that this is fake. But if you look at that, actually read it, and this is why people, it's just so embarrassing how silly people don't have any critical thinking skills. Like, just read what it actually says, okay? Let's not try to just, wait, where is it? They delete it? Where is it? Interesting. Let's do MH37 videos. Oh, wow. Okay, so, well, that Trans 24 one was out here. I don't know where it's gone now. Google's been playing around with it a lot. But if you go to do the video show it being teleported, this is Newsweek one, right? Let's look at the Newsweek one. I debunked this. So this was August 9th. I debunked this the same day within 1 hour of it coming out, and I have absolute proof that I'm the one who debunked it. This was before anyone knew who I was. I still had 30 followers, right? And I debunked this video on Twitter, have absolute proof. Now, if you go look at it here, it just basically quotes some people saying, well, this doesn't look right to me. Comments suggest that it could be linked to MH370. It was debunked several months ago. See, now it goes to the France 24 article. So let's look at the France 24 article here and why it doesn't show it. If you only have 1 minute, it doesn't have any factual reason for why it's debunked. You go down here, could it be found in Google? This isn't even the same as our situation. This is not the same thing either. Why is it in the middle of force? Again, this isn't even our videos. This is not even related to our situation here. This is not related either. So where's our thing? The 3 orbs one here, okay? Let's see. So we can see this actually, they do get this part right. It's from Regicide Anon, right? And that's the only thing that I think factually they even get correct. Scott Brando, who's a debunker, who is somebody who has a debunker account that runs bots, that we've proven that they run this UFO interest bot situation, tries to claim that this was edited by a visual effecting enthusiast. There's no factual basis for this statement here. This is an opinion by somebody who's not qualified. But they're going to run with this in this fake debunk anyway. Inconsistencies. Again, this is nothing that has anything to do with debunking our videos. That's not factual at all. Here's the only factual basis. Hoaxai, another debunker account that's probably just a bot, not even a real person. They downloaded this and they say it's NRL 33. This is not NRL 30. You can see right here, this is a 2. This is the only piece of supposed factual evidence in the whole thing. It was launched after the event. Yeah, you're right, because that's not what we're looking at right here. This says NRL 22. So the only factual thing in the entire debunk is factually incorrect. That's it. So that's it. That's all there is to this debunk. That's the only factual piece in this whole debunk, and it's wrong, objectively wrong. Now, let's take a look at what Newsweek did. So there's only one piece of factual evidence. Let's try to find it, the hoaxai. Oh, they changed it. So this used to say NRL 77. They've edited it now. So they had this originally incorrect. And it used to say 77, which I have proof of as well. I bring the receipts, guys, every single time. So they've edited it now because what they used was an AI to just copy the article into this new article. And the AI screwed up and copied the NRL part wrong. So they've changed it to this. And again, this is factually incorrect. It's NRL 22, which was launched in 2005 or 2006. So this debunk is factually incorrect. And the fact that it's still up tells you that they're trying to hide this information. Otherwise this would have been deleted a long time ago. These people should probably be sued, in my opinion, for continuing to support this factually incorrect information and hiding the true events. And here you go. You can see they updated it. So a week later, after I proved this wrong on the Twitter, they went ahead and changed it to 33. So this is straight up clown shoes. Newsweek, delete your fake debunk because this is not real. Now, what is happening here is this is the satellite that's taking our video, as we've shown here. Now, if you click on this as well, I believe, let me see, did they edit this at all? I have older screenshots of this. I believe it mentioned signals intelligence. Yeah, tracking ships and aircraft. Look at this. Used to track ships and aircraft from radio transmissions they emit. There we go, guys. Bingo. We got you. So we have proof here. And what they're using is something called SIGINT. So if I search SIGINT payload, watch what happens. Just SIGINT payload, okay? What's the first thing that pops up? MQ-1C Gray Eagle. That's a bingo, guys. That's a bingo. Okay, so everything is lining up. We're looking at our assets. They're in coordination using a SIGINT payload. And if we look at this image here, I think this is the one. Look at that. Look at this image over here on the right. Boom. There's our interconnected satellites. There's our NRL 22 communicating with our other satellites here. Communicating with our airplane. Communicating with our drone. This is an interconnected network. We've been able to figure out everything about how these videos work. Okay? Let's see what else we've got here. Okay, so let's see what else we've got. We're not going to talk about any other conspiracies, but in general, I don't really believe in any other conspiracies, if you guys want to know the honest truth. This is a verifiable conspiracy, which blew my mind because I was never in the UFO community. I was never in the conspiracy community. As you guys can see from the investigation, I believed all the official data originally, right? I thought this plane had to be in the South Indian Ocean. But as we've dug through it, we've been able to prove that no, this is just the biggest conspiracy of all time. They covered up a very mundane event, a fire. And the only reason why you would cover up something that basic is what we're seeing in the videos. Classified technology that is unknown to the public from 9 years ago. Let's see what else we've got. Okay. Taking a look at some of the comments real quick. The black and white FLIR version of it appears to be a mirrored version that they put in black and white. So I've seen it. It doesn't really add anything to our situation. It's really just the same. It's the same drone footage that's been mirrored. But that's good. Let's see what else we've got. Yeah, you can tell that the 3 looks completely different in the satellite footage, so it has to be a 2 that we're looking at. People are saying that I'm toxic and threatening them by private message. That's categorically false. If I think that people are trying to discredit me in whatever way they can. I messaged a couple people early on that were lying about the videos, trying to claim that they were fake, and said that if they keep lying about the videos, I will expose them. That's not a threat, guys. That's called don't lie to people, otherwise they'll prove that you're lying, okay? So they're trying to miscategorize that as a threat for some reason. I've actually been threatened. You know, one of the people on Twitter literally told me I have to be careful of what's coming next. Well, what exactly does that mean, right? So, you know, telling people that they're liars and they shouldn't lie, that's only a threat to people who are liars. And it's only, you know, because it can only damage them if they're lying. So the answer is pretty simple. Don't lie about the videos. We know the videos are real. We've proven it. If you lie about them, we'll prove that you're a liar. You know, if you think that that's a threat, take it the way you want to take it. Just don't lie about the videos and there won't be any issue. With respect to being toxic in general, I would say that the people that I've been blocking are people that have, you guys have to realize, you know how many people have tried to come into my DMs to try to tell me what to think? It used to happen like 5 times per day. People that are lying to me, telling me that it can't be smoke, that I have to believe that I can't believe that anything's real, that I have to act a certain way or not a certain way. I'm running an investigation that I don't know who I can trust. The last thing I want people doing is trying to come to me privately and telling me how to think. And that's why I set rules very specifically in my Twitter, in my Discord. Do not come to my DMs and tell me what to think. You can feel free to post your own opinions, whatever you want. Do it publicly so that everyone can assess it so that there's nothing sketchy happening, right? People constantly broke these rules, almost on a daily basis, and constantly came there to try to tell me how I should be thinking. The amount of entitlement that someone has to think that they should come to my DMs and tell me how I should think is quite astonishing, right? Just don't do that, okay? Either keep it to yourself or post it publicly where other people can vet your information. Don't try to come tell me what to think. And it's gotten a lot better, honestly. So since then, you know, I've blocked those people, and I'm not on anyone's side. Some of these people were supporters of me. You know, some of the people were part of our investigation, right? That's not how I judge people. I judge people based on what they're telling me. And so if you come there and try to do that, I have to be fair to everyone, okay? And that's how we have to go about it. So what happens is some of these people got blocked. They got extremely upset about this, right? And now they want to claim that I'm toxic or whatever. I don't care what people think about me. The point of the truth is getting to the truth and solving the case and the mystery, okay? So what we're building and what I decided from that is we're going to build a community that does not adhere to this toxic standard that you see on Reddit, where everybody's just cutting everybody else down nonstop. And if you look at a lot of threads, that's what you'll see, right? This person's terrible. Don't listen to them. This person's awful. Like, Jesus, people. Like, that kind of stuff shouldn't even be allowed, right? Attack the evidence, not the person. If you can't attack the evidence, don't say anything at all. If that's too hard for you, then you're going to be excluded from the community. Simple as that, guys. So, you know, most people don't have any issue with that. The people that have an issue with that are the kind of narcissistic people that feel like their entitlement is so important that that you should have to listen to what they have to say. And that's just unfortunately not going to be the case. So let's see what else we've got. But that was a good question in general. How do we verify it's U.S. technology? We can really only speculate that it is. But again, the evidence points to it being United States. They're on the camera. There's no reason to believe that we have to include non-human intelligence in this at all. There's no reason we have to include any other governments at all in general. Is the heat signature from the windows normal? Hard to tell. There aren't really a lot of videos like this that are thermalized from drones of flying airplanes. People have tried to compare it to planes that are on the ground. It's not the same. It's much colder up in the sky at thousands of feet in the sky. So we don't really even have a basis to compare that type of stuff to. The videos, okay, that doesn't make any sense. Let me see what else we've got here. One of the UFO mods is in my DMs. No, that doesn't sound right. There is one of the UFO mods in my DMs, though, actually, if you want to know the truth. And yeah, I mean, I think the reality is that the UFO subreddit is 100% compromised. There's no question about it. Either the government controls Reddit. If you guys don't believe that, then just go look at the EBO scientist who was deleted in real time by the admins while they were posting a full physiology of a supposed extraterrestrial body or whatever. There's no reason for them to have even deleted something like that unless it's real and unless the government has control of it. So one thing you guys need to know about how the disinformation works is they try to throw out a bunch of fake stuff out there so that no one can believe anything to be real. And I think a lot of you guys have been susceptible to that as well. But that's not how the real world works. We can prove things to be real as well. Now, if you read the Twitter files, you know absolutely that the government controls social media. And when Elon Musk took it over, he ripped that away from them, which is why they hate him with the passion of 1,000 suns, and which is why I've been posting on Twitter, because that's the one place where I won't be banned by the government. Under the old Twitter, I would have already been banned by the government 100%, okay? The reason why they banned my subreddit on Reddit with no explanation whatsoever, with no warning whatsoever, is because they have to control the narrative. The reason why the debunker subreddit is called Alien Abduction 2014 instead of MH370 is because they have to make it confuse people, right? They have to make it hard. The whole point of that subreddit is to kill the story off. Nobody in there is trying to solve the case. Not a single person in that subreddit is trying to solve the mystery. What they're trying to do is they're trying to debunk the mystery. That's why it's a debunker subreddit, okay? And you can't have somebody who's out there telling the truth like I was doing if you're going to try to accomplish that. That's the reason why they banned my subreddit, okay? They also banned me for 6 days, 2 different 3-day periods, despite me doing nothing at all, for just messaging the moderators. I messaged the moderators one time. The moderators were extremely rude in response, and I got a 3-day ban for harassment. One of those was literally telling the moderators if they don't stop tagging my content with possible scammer, they were tagging all my content that people were posting with possible scammer to discredit me, that I would sue them individually, which was a factual statement. If they kept doing that, I would, and I sent a cease and desist. I did do that. And the same day the cease and desist arrived to Reddit, they took down the tag. So I want to be clear that what I was sending is a factual statement that I was telling them, not a threat, unless you think that lying, again, threatens you. And if it does, then the answer is stop lying. Let's see, what else? Anything else? Yeah, so the person who's still talking, you're probably going to get blocked here as well. So if you've been blocked, you know why you've been blocked. Okay, it's not a mystery. You know why you've been blocked. Act better in the future. Otherwise, you're going to find yourself getting blocked further, okay? So I just want to be clear about that as well. So there's nobody out there that doesn't know why they got blocked. They know why. They were either acting like a dick, they were being condescending, they were trying to tell me what to think. Any of those types of situations are going to get you blocked. The way you avoid that is just don't act like that. So I don't want to go into too much more of that. I want to get into the case as much as we can. Okay. Yeah, so let's go ahead into the flight path here, guys. And again, so people, I won't call you out here, but if you're trying to tell me what I should think and what weakens the argument, you're going to get yourself blocked. Don't do that. If you want to build your own case, build your own case. Okay? Don't tell me what I should do with my case. Got it? It's pretty clear, guys. If that's too hard for you, you should look internally at why you're so egotistical and why you think your opinion is so important. Okay? So just keep that in mind. Again, you've been empowered with all of the evidence, guys. So if you want to build your own case on what you think is really happening, use the evidence and do that. Don't tell me how to run my case. Okay, now let's see. How can teleporting save them? So this is a really good question too. How can teleporting save them, guys? No, I'm not telling people what to think. What I'm doing is telling you my opinion. And you guys are here listening to my opinion because you want to listen to it. I'm presenting the evidence. Okay? I've been clear that anyone's free to think whatever they want. Build your own case. That's the difference, guys. So it's a pretty significant one that you guys need to understand. So let's go ahead and go through the flight path. And again, no more crying about being moderated, guys. If you keep crying about it, you're going to get blocked again. So, this is an opportunity for you now to have a voice. Don't abuse that opportunity if you want to keep talking. Now, let's go through the flight path here. What we think with respect to... Here's the flight path, I think. Why would this save the plane? Well, we see this zap is extremely cold in the thermal. We just saw it, right? So potentially that might be zapping the energy out of the batteries. These batteries are very energetic. That's what causes this runaway effect. So it could be possible that somehow that saps the energy when it's absorbing it there to pull that out of there. The other thing it could be doing is because it's so cold, it could actually just be putting out the fire directly from the cold effect that's happening in that thermal. So that's our speculation right now as to how that would be saving the plane. But again, it's speculation. We don't know where the plane's going or what happened to it. We just know it didn't crash into the ocean, at least not in the South Indian Ocean. Now, okay. Flight path being solved. So when we figured out the northern locations, now everything started to add up because all our plane needs to do now is fly a little bit more to the west. So here's an example. So here it is, and I'll pull up the video as well so you can watch along because I actually have a video of this too, which is pretty cool. Okay, yeah, we have a video as well. So I'll flip over to the video in a second, but so let's go through the flight path and what happens here. The plane takes off from Kuala Lumpur. It's going up here to the east. Actually, I'm going to just use the media one. It's just better than this. This is really janky and I don't like it. This one's pretty nice. The Not So Deep podcast made this one. So the plane takes off at 1642 UTC. It gets to it pulls back at 1630, takes off 1642 UTC. So about 40 minutes later, it gets to the Igari waypoint up here, which is where the plane goes dark. This is 64 seconds after the plane says, "Good night, Malaysian Airlines Flight 370. This is the first event. This is when the batteries, the fire had probably already started here and gets to the point where a minor explosion happens. The plane most likely gets depressurized at this point, but possibly not, maybe not. But a fire definitely breaks out at this point. This point, 1721, is the same time where Mike McKay sees the plane on fire from his oil rig 300 miles to the northeast. Okay, he saw the plane on fire. He lost his job over it because they had to cover it up and discredit all the witnesses. A bunch of people along the coast here, 9 of them along the coast, hear a loud bang at reportedly 1720 UTC. This is indicative of this fire breaking out, right? So at this point, the plane turns around, okay? And what happens here is it turns around 10 minutes later while this plane's turning around here. There's some people who are on the coast right here, fishermen. They see the plane flying very low, unusually low. This would be indicative of the fact that the plane's trying to fly low so that the passengers have enough oxygen to breathe. So this turn that the plane makes, it's going directly Penang Langkawi International Airport. If you read the Wired article, this is the correct location for the plane to try to go to. It's slightly closer than Kuala Lumpur. The terrain is better, so that if this plane has to fly low, this is going to be the correct location for it to go to. You can read the Wired article if you want, which will outline this. And I'll pull it up here in a second as well. So this is like very clearly here an emergency event. You're flying to the next airport. This is not what somebody who's suicidal would do. This is not even really a situation if it's a hijacking. If it's a hijacking, you're going to go direct B route to whatever your rendezvous point is. You're not going to try to fly over a commercial airport. So right when it was about here is where the fishermen are seeing it now. So we had people hearing it on the coast. We had Mike McKay seeing the fire here, but he did not see it crash. And he was clear about that. He thought it must have crashed because he saw it on fire. But as I found out yesterday from talking to my sources, it is consistent and possible for this plane to last all the way over here to the west where the boat is while on fire, because the cargo bays are made to try to contain these fires. The fire suppression devices can temporarily stop the fire, but they're not going to be able to permanently stop the fire. Okay? So this plane is flying over here and it gets to Penang. 1752, it gets over Penang. The co-pilot's cell phone pings the tower. This tells us they're probably trying to get help at this point. Now, does it mean the communications are out? It kind of indicates it, but it's not a certain thing at that point. Okay? So what does it do at this point? It turns. So this is where I would presume they made contact with the government, right? Why are you going to this random waypoint over here unless you know that you're going to meet up with somebody? And probably the idea is that the assets had to be out here somewhere to rendezvous with them. Otherwise, you would probably just try to land the plane right here in the Malacca Straits, as opposed to trying to, go all the way out here to the Nicobar Islands. Now, this is where the radar data had been most likely modified so that they would throw us off the trail. And they said that this is the last time they talked to it. But when we looked at those reports just now, we know that 1840 was the last time they had contact with it, which is where Kate's boat is at. So our witness, we have this witness out here, Kate T. So she's on a boat going from Phuket, or from India to Phuket. Phuket's over here. And she sees now the glowing orange plane. And there's been a recreation of her sighting, and the sighting is consistent with basically the direction of travel of the plane circling around her boat. Now, interestingly enough, she got really unlucky and did not see the orbs or the zap effect, because she went to go put the kettle on probably at the worst possible time. And when she came back out, there was no more plane anymore. I've talked to her personally. So interestingly enough, what happens here at this point then is the plane is coming over here, and now our videos come into effect. And now we see our videos. Remember, we already proved that the plane in our video is traveling south and to the east. Ba-boom. That's consistent with going around here in a circle around this location right here. So when she sees the orange glowing plane, this is indicative of the fire having broken out, and the bromine gas in the halon fire extinguishing device having that chemical reaction that causes the plane to glow orange. Again, I've had a source corroborate that this would be consistent with what they would see. Keep in mind now, it's pitch black at this point, okay? So the reason why Kate can see it is probably from the glow of the plane. I mean, she'd probably see the plane anyway, but she can see that glow very clearly from it. If they try to land in the ocean, most likely the plane is going to break apart and everybody's going to have to start swimming. And that's if they survive the impact, right? Even on controlled descent, the planes are moving really fast when they land, guys. It's not just like it's touching down. Even the Sully Sullenberger on the Hudson River, which is very calm, even that was relatively miraculous. I think people thought that the plane would break up if trying to do that, right? So he was a hero in terms of landing that plane. So most likely this plane was going to be doomed. And I don't know if a lot of people know this, but most mainland Chinese don't learn how to swim. If you're a Westerner or an American, almost everybody learns how to swim. I lived in Singapore, which you see here on the bottom right. I lived here for a few years, and I went to school with a lot of Chinese students. And I remember very clearly when we had a swim class in gym, none of them got in the water. And I thought, why are these people not getting in the water? So I asked them, we don't learn how to swim. Chinese don't learn how to swim. So 70% or so of this plane was Chinese, including, I think, like 8 of the semiconductor scientists. So if this plane crashes into the water, even a controlled descent, everybody's going to die. So this plane was doomed, everybody. And most likely the reason why I didn't land at Penang, based on what we saw in the thermal, is that the landing gear was probably damaged. If the landing gear is damaged, there's no safe way to land it on the ground. I mean, you could try, but it's going to blow up when you try to land. And again, the plane's also full of fuel. They have this plane flying for another 6 hours. So this plane is completely full of fuel. So, you guys have seen 9/11. This plane's going to explode if it hits something. So this is an extremely dangerous situation for this plane. It was almost certainly doomed at this point, and this is why you break out the technology, right? We have to save the plane, save the people, whatever motive you want to believe in. Again, I don't care. My personal belief, as we've been able to connect the semiconductor engineers and scientists to superconductivity, which we believe we're seeing in those orbs, is that they were saving the plane because these people are directly connected to the government technology that we see. And to me, that wraps everything up in a bow in terms of the motivation behind why you would do that. So let's flip it back over. Okay, now let me answer some more questions in here because I think that was quite a lot. I don't know much about some of these historical cases. So one thing I want to say here too is that a lot of people send me videos, historical cases. I find it interesting, but I'm really just focused on MH370. There definitely could be similarities. I think some of the biggest things like the Philadelphia experiment, where they try to make a whole boat disappear, big Navy ship. A lot of that stuff I think is pretty interesting in context of what we're dealing with here. But what's really big here is that we have 2 videos, right? How can we prove that the drone's faked in? Okay, let's take a look at that as well. So the only way where any part of this could be faked is somehow the U.S. government is involved, and that's because the requirements. We're looking at classified military intelligence. So it would require a team to put together. If so, let me see. Where's my list? what it would take to hoax the videos, okay? This is a pretty comprehensive list here that I like to go through. And I'm going to make sure I add this as well to, I don't want these ads, so I'm going to flip up here. I'm going to make sure I add this to my all evidence that I'm working on as well. Okay, why does that not work? It's like it didn't copy correctly. Okay, here we go. So, between 4 and 72 days to create. Remember, based on our images that we have of the first archive. It's an original work. There's nothing to reference copy it from. There's nothing like you're copying a painting that already exists out there. You've got to create from scratch and kind of come up with how it's going to look. You have to know how to create these realistic volumetric clouds. We're looking at clouds in the background that are perfectly accurate. You would have to know how to animate them, how they look from the low altitude, which is those cumulus clouds. You would have to be able to accurately light them. Remember, when the flash zap goes off, it accurately illuminates these very articulate, very detailed clouds. You have to be able to recreate exactly what MH370 looks like, a 777-200. You're going to need to know the turning radius so that you can make sure that when we're creating the video that it's perfectly accurate to the maximum capabilities of a 777 in descent, which we've also been able to prove. So we're already at a point where it's, in my opinion, essentially impossible. The Top Gun Maverick people, this is where they kind of chimed in and claimed that this is beyond what they would have been able to do. Where the plane would have been at the exact time. The time is on the exact flight path at the exact time in our satellite coordinates. How to accurate coordinate shifts relative to the location. So you'd have to build a program to do the coordinate shifts that we see and then overlay it over your hoax and have it animate properly as well. You would have to know what the weather looks like. We've proven that the weather had these cumulus clouds very low to the ground using the NASA satellites. So you'd also have to somehow know that information as well. You would have to accurately create the smoke. We've now confirmed this is smoke. This is outdated. We were speculating before, but now this is smoke trailing the plane. So you'd have to have that using particles in 2 different videos. You'd have to know what the thermal looks like to a level that would fool experts. A lot of people have a hard time even believing that it's real. Better visual effects skills than Top Gun Maverick artists, who we have a testimony for, which I can post later. You need the knowledge of these military classified systems that were completely unknown to the public. Even now, people don't really even know what these capabilities are. We had to deduce so much information to really understand these capabilities. You'd have to know that the military is using a Citrix environment, which, it's not that unreasonable. I think that almost every business does use them, but I think it's a little surprising to me that the military is using it for their highly classified systems, but I guess what else would you use? The frame rate difference. You'd have to build that frame rate difference into the mouse and to the background. That doesn't make any sense of why you would do that, right? Unless it's just a real video. You'd have to know they're using that specialized mouse because the mouse doesn't move the coordinates. The coordinates are only moving when they're like either using a different mouse or when they're like pressing down on a button or whatever it is to move the coordinate view around. You'd have to know what the satellites are in operation and what their payloads are to know that they could create this 3D stereoscopic video and that satellite was there in the right location at the right time. You'd have to know what the false color IR looks like. So when we're looking at this over here, guys, this is false color IR. That's the reason why the zap in the satellite is white, is that this is nighttime and they're recreating it to make it look like daytime. So the color that we're seeing here is not true color. Now, some of it, of course, is true. It's accurate, like white, when we see the clouds are, white. But if you were to look at this at nighttime, you might not even be able to see the clouds because it's going to be pitch black, right? And that's also part of the reason why the plane is so bright, is because they're creating this false color IR at nighttime. So they need it to stick out really well. Now, the reason why we know that they have to have that capability is these low Earth orbit satellites traverse around the world every 90 minutes. If it can't see in the dark, it's useless half the time. Oh, no, I didn't want to close that. Let's just pull that back up. You'd have to know how to create that 3D stereoscopic imagery, how to animate the orbs. The orbs also go through the trails of the plane accurately as well. They get distorted accurately. I have a visual effect of that as well. You'd have to know how the particle system, where we're seeing in front of the orbs, pulling the orbs forward. You'd have to some reason how to know how to create that and even come up with creating that, right? There's nothing to copy that from at all, not even in UFOlogy. You'd have to know what the MQ-1C drone looks like, its payload, where that payload's located. One of the ones that's a little bit cute is to how not use a 2D visual effect from a 90s video game that's low quality in a 3D environment. We have a 3D environment, guys, so you're not going to be using a 2D visual effect. You need to have it from multiple perspectives. So you need a 3D visual effect in order to put into our 3D environment. This would require a 3D render in order to get the multiple perspectives that we see from the two different videos. So the debunk breaks down on basically every single level, which is not uncommon for Mick West. His arguments make no sense at all most of the time. And I really hope people stop falling for his stuff, because he's an idiot and he's a fraud, and really no one should listen to anything he says. Perhaps most importantly is that they would have to know we would never find the plane even after 9 years. Because if we find a plane even tomorrow, the hoax would break down, right? So again, just goes to prove and further prove the authenticity of the videos. Now let's take a look at this Top Gun Maverick. I was a lead visual effects artist on Top Gun Maverick. I worked on it for 2 years, more than 1,000 visual effects shot. If this is CGI, whoever made it front ran all the work that we did by about 4 years, meaning that they somehow were doing better than they did, 4 years ahead of when they were doing it, and did a better job than us, apparently. One of the biggest advantages we had was to cheat the speed of the jet's scale through different shots for cinematic effect. Even in the Dark Star sequence, the actual speed of the 3D model was moving through our environment wasn't anything close to Mach 10. Whoever made this animation made sure that the scale and speed is accurate between the two cameras, which would mean that it's animated and scaled to real-world speed. I don't know if it's real. It could be made using CGI. It would require a considerable amount of effort. And again, the Marvel VFX experts said it would take a minimum of 6 months. That's using today's technology. The camera distortion and rolling stutter all would have had to been recreated. The clouds and lighting look correct based on the visual light rays. The trails following the orbs, which are not following, they're in front of them, are also accurate. And everything in the scene seems to be physically correct. The idea that the drone would be randomly following it seems a bit unrealistic. Well, it's not. Remember, we've proven that it's actually intercepted with it. So this is another piece of strong evidence that goes to show that what we're looking at is fully authentic. Not to mention the fact that probably hundreds of different debunkers, visual effects experts have looked through it frame by frame, and they can't find a single discrepancy anywhere. So our videos are real, folks. They are 100% real. And what comes along with that is a lot of baggage, right? Let's take a look at a few more comments and questions. Okay. Sorry if I'm going to miss some of these. If we have that technology, the answer is because they would need to deploy that technology where the assets are. That's why they would fly out there. Why not land on the land? On the land, plane's gonna explode if you try to land on the ground. It's full of gas, and landing gear's damaged. There's no safe way to land. Yeah, at this point, making this for a hoax is more of a stretch than it being real. Honestly, there's no logical story that would make any sense for this to be hoaxed, and that's the biggest problem. So if there are debunkers that want to give it a go, you need to come up with a full comprehensive story for how and why they did this. You somehow need to incorporate all the evidence that I put into your story for why they would hoax all that information, and regicide Anon has to be involved. Otherwise, you only have 4 days. So good luck with that. There's no chance, but I wish you the best. Let's see. We talked about the Freescale semiconductors already, but I think I already went over that. I think I mentioned that, so I'm not going to speak out to the names of any people out there, but there's a lot of people who are completely discredited, and they have discredited themselves on social media, and unfortunately, due to that, you can't take anything they say very seriously. I have not discredited myself in any way, shape, or form. I've put all the evidence out there to be vetted and reviewed, and my case has been built, and I've been 100% honest about it. I'm not married to any of my positions. As you can tell, my thought process has changed throughout the course of it. There's a lot of people out there that they already think they know what happened, and they're trying to take the evidence to make it fit what they know. We took the evidence and we built a case around what the evidence tells us. That's why people are following me and listening to me, because the evidence that we've built has built a comprehensive case that essentially is rock solid, that at this point really can't be denied. Let's see what else we've got. The leaker has not come forward at this point, but I think we've nailed it down. Let's go ahead and take a look at the leaker now, too. So we've talked about the SIBR system, SIGINT, how all this stuff comes together. So what I did then is I thought about it. I thought, we have a pretty good psychological profile of what happened here. We said, this person stripped all this data from the HUD. They made sure they cropped out important assets from the satellite footage. So it doesn't seem like it's a spy. A spy is just going to give this information to China. They're not going to post it on the internet. They're not going to crop out, remove all this HUD data. They're not going to colorize the thermal, right? This told me that it's a U.S. military person. And the fact that they were able to colorize that thermal also tells me they're probably an operator, as well as you can imagine someone having an emotional reaction to watching this, like kind of we have as well. and going, we're never going to find the truth unless this gets leaked. Told me that what we're looking at is somebody who was probably directly involved in the event. Somebody who had to have a high level of clearance in order to be able to pull that off, and was probably there on one of these spy planes, watching the event happen, maybe even controlling the drone, or potentially watching on the satellite footage. So knowing all that information, I thought, I wonder if we could figure out who this person is, right? Like, first thing I found out is that if they were, unless you're under martial law, you can't hide these charges from the public. They have to be out there somewhere. And when I realized that there's no way to easily hide it, I thought, okay, well, I'm just going to look up everybody. So I Googled everybody who was charged with espionage, and I just went down the list, right? And I kept my range really open. Everyone from 2014 to like 2020. And even beyond. I looked up all the big people that have been charged out there. None of them really fit the bill, right? And then we got to my man, Edward C. Lin. When we got to Edward C. Lin, I knew right away we were onto something. Okay, so I searched every person that's out there, and I couldn't find anyone. And then I started searching like past historical date ranges, and that's when all of a sudden Edward C. Lin showed up. There's nothing about him after 2017 at all. But from 2014 to 2017, there's a lot of articles about it. One of them is called The Strange Case of Edward C. Lin. The whole situation was weird about this guy to begin with, right? So he was a naval flight officer with experience in signals intelligence. Once I saw that right away, I went, what? Okay, this is the first person I looked up that had said signals intelligence anywhere, right, in their bio. And he flew this EP-3 Ares 2 spy plane. I looked this spy plane up. One of its capabilities, real-time video playback. This is when I immediately started getting very suspicious. He faced several charges. He was arrested September 11th, 2015. This is within the time frame that I would have guessed somebody to be arrested. They're not going to get arrested right away. They have to build a case against them, all this stuff. They even ran a sting operation on him the month beforehand in August. They were trying to prove that he was a spy because there was no evidence of him being a spy. And they wanted to get him for life in prison, right? So you can see here, they threw him in prison, in jail right away. They didn't want him talking to anybody. They didn't want him talking to the media. And they kept him in pretrial detainment for 2 years. So they tried to get him for life in prison. That's how serious the charges against him were. This was the first major incident of espionage by an active duty member since the Cold War. This is the most serious incident that had happened since 2014 or before that, for 30 or 40 years. So whatever happened to this guy, they were trying to throw the absolute book at him. That is fully consistent with what we're dealing with in these videos. They redacted his charge sheet heavily, including the dates. So unless there's evidence in those dates that are going to be able to tell the public what really happened, there's no reason to hide that information. It was really suspicious. I mean, compared to like the Jack Tahara guy who recently was, blowing up all the Ukraine information from Discord and all this stuff. They had way more access than he should have had. They're not redacting all his stuff, I imagine, right? So this is pretty odd that they redacted. We looked at the charge sheet. I pulled it up as well. It's actually linked in the next post here. You can't use AI to figure it out. The date ranges are all like, there's no way to cheat it by telling how long the boxes are. We tried. So they tried to accuse him of communicating information. They threw some extra charges on him too, like prostitution, all this weird stuff, because they were trying to obfuscate this guy's charges. So again, he was in the surveillance aircraft gathering signals intelligence. Everything we know about this situation now has signals intelligence written all over it. Very little evidence of espionage and growing doubt that the government would be able to prove he's a spy from one of the articles. He had a high level of clearance. He was on the Navy's most sensitive intelligence gathering aircraft. He had previously worked for the Special Project Squadron with specialized signals intelligence aircraft. He had a secret clearance higher than top secret. So I have a top secret clearance. That does not mean that I have access to everything there is in the world. It means that I have access to some information that would be very damaging if it got leaked, but it doesn't mean that you know about all the secret stuff out there. It's all compartmentalized, meaning, okay, you need access to this, you need access to that, right? And it depends on what your job is. So he's obviously somebody who would have access to like the most secret stuff that's out there, right? And he worked in the Navy as well. So he was, at the time of his arrest, part of this airborne special project squadron called the Special Project Squadron 2. So, if you're deploying your super secret technology, it sounds like this would be the kind of squadron that would be the one to take in charge of it, right? He knew their most sensitive secrets, Navy's black program portfolio, right? So he had access to the type of technology, theoretically, that we're seeing. His knowledge could be extremely useful for potential adversaries. So they didn't want him to go talk in other countries, right? Because if he knows about this type of technology, that's extremely dangerous. Part of another reason why they would come down on him so hard. Look at the time frame in which he was deployed there. He was deployed in the squadron February 2014. When did our incident happen? March 2014, the next month. He was arrested September 2015. He didn't even finish this squadron out. So again, this is where they ran the sting operation on him from August to September, right before they arrested him. They had no evidence that he was a spy. So they tried to run a sting operation to try to prove that he's a spy. But that didn't work either, right? Here's a quote, and this is from a lawyer, not even from his defense. This didn't turn out to be related to foreign intelligence, not really a spy case. It still sends a strong message about care and safeguard of classified information. This is a former military lawyer saying that. And then what's clear is that last year's sensational headlines were far from accurate. Unnamed government officials said that Lin was suspected of spying for China and Taiwan, despite there being no evidence in the investigation that he ever exchanged any sensitive information with anyone from China. So basically, they were trying to come at him hard. They had no strong evidence for it. The defense lawyer argued that the classified information in question is available on the internet. Okay, so we have access to the information that he got charged with, and they try to throw him in prison for life. What do you guys think how that information could potentially be? I think we're looking at it on 2 videos, right? The government came back and said just because it's available on the internet does not declassify it. So why is everybody staying silent right now about the videos? Because the information is not declassified. This is the missing link, is why everyone's being quiet about the videos. People who are out there have NDAs, people that have connections with the government, they're being told not to talk about it because it's classified. They're not allowed to. If they do, they're going to lose their connections. They're going to lose their NDA. They might even lose their clearance. I don't have an NDA. Nobody's told me that this video footage is real, that I should have to take it seriously. If they were to have reached out to me, maybe I wouldn't have been blowing it up. But until that happens, we're going to keep talking about it. So whether or not the U.S. government made public, is the only thing that matters, not whether or not somebody else made the public. So he ended up pleading guilty to just the 2 incidences of mishandling classified material, which they're probably, again, just trying to obfuscate what he was really charged with here, right? He leaked these videos, potentially. In 2014, he had accidentally left 2 flight manifests in his flight suit, including search and rescue code names. This is another bingo here. There's nothing else that I can even think of that would have search and rescue code names from 2014. And remember the time he was deployed, February 2014. Give me another situation within that small of a time frame where this could be possible. This is MH370 right here. In addition to admitting the lesser charges, he did not face the 2 charges of espionage. So they made him take a plea deal, convinced him what he did was wrong, right? And that he screwed up. Because they also don't want him to go talk to other countries either. So they actually have to probably scratch his back a little bit too at this point. They still gave him 9 years. He took a plea deal and they still gave him 9 years. So they came down on him hard. If you look at other people, they did not get this much of a punishment. They got like a slap on the wrist compared to this guy. They came out hard. And they've had him in jail already for 646 days before that plea deal. I didn't report this on here, but they also were abusing him while he was in this pretrial detainment. He reported it several times. Make him go out in the cold, take his book that was like, confidential information between him and his lawyer. They would rummage through his cell all the time. He and another person basically got abused nonstop by what they called the goon squad. This person deserves vindication more than probably anyone else in this whole country, to be honest with you. So this was a quote. Lieutenant Commander Eddie Lin never spied on his country. He served faithfully in the United States Navy for over 17 years. So this guy was a patriot, becoming a highly regarded and decorated officer. He accepted responsibility for the offenses he was actually guilty of and agreed to debrief and further assist the FBI and NCIS. So basically it says, yeah, I leaked those videos. I'll give you all the information I need about them. I shouldn't have leaked those. I see how that could have damaged us. China and Russia are now going to know about this technology. And then he says, I get physically ill when I think of the damage I could have caused in my actions, Lin said. I'm exhausted and broken in spirit. The best thing I could do is serve as a cautionary tale for others. Let's just tell Lieutenant Commander Edward C. Lin, if you are Agent 370, which we strongly believe that you are not a traitor. You are a hero. We salute you, sir. In addition to that, I want to go ahead and just throw out here that President Joe Biden, or whoever becomes president next, give this man a pardon. He does not deserve what happened to him. He does not deserve to spend 7 to 9 years in prison over this for doing the right thing, which is telling us the truth about Malaysian Airlines Flight 370, which we would have never known without these videos, never in a million years. More importantly, the technology that we see in the videos is being hidden from the public is absolutely criminal. This man right here is a hero, my hero. Okay, so we've addressed that. Okay, let me just take a look at what we got going on here. Sorry. Okay, we got 49 viewers. Cool. Okay, what else questions you guys have? I wanted to go through that information. Let me see what else we've got. We talked about SIBRs, satellite, hydrophone data, the ping data. Okay, let's look at the ping data again too. Ping data, sketchy ping data. So I looked at this ping data myself, and you get down here in this ping data, and it is just suspicious as hell. There's no way anyone who's ever looked at an Excel spreadsheet is going to not notice this, which makes me question whether or not the people that are involved in looking at the data are corrupted or if they're honest people in general. So you can see here, weirdly enough, I already showed, like if I go back, I think this is the one, where you can see the zeros just start happening at 1830. Everything before this, there's pages and pages of just perfect data. You get down here and all of a sudden just zeros time going down. Looks like something just aired out right here, right? And it goes down a little bit further. And then when you get down to the after 1840, the next ping is 1941. Look at this. That's 5 hours of data right there. 10 total rows right here. 5 hours of data. And look at this obvious pattern change. Goes from this channel 6 all the way down. This satellite here is the same. And all of a sudden it just rotates between these two. 10 and 4, 10 and 4, 10 and 4, 10 and 4. This is just looks like they just added 10 rows of data in there to me. I mean, before this, keep in mind, there's dozens of pages for every ping. Now there's just 10 rows for 5 hours. No chance anyone looked at that and did not realize that there is something completely suspicious going on. Let's also look at Victor's here's flight path that he created. Where does the South Indian Ocean turn happen? Oh, look, exact location where our videos happen. 1840 UTC. Oh, so instead we're supposed to believe there's this exact weird just turn out into the South Indian Ocean? I've got a better idea. How about our videos happen right here? Plane disappears off the face of the earth. You know, that's what really happened here, right, guys? And over here, you see the line where our satellite is at this point. Now, this is a little bit inaccurate, but close enough. So we've got independent corroboration of the satellite. We have a time. Everything lines up to 1840 UTC. You know what? Let's get a signal out there as well. Is there any communications? Oh, there is a communication. SOS signal. Only reported in Chinese news. Reported to be intercepted at 1843 UTC, less than 3 minutes after we think that our situation was happening. What does the distress call say? The cabin was facing disintegration and attempting an emergency landing. Facing disintegration and an attempting emergency landing. Well, we've already proven it's a fire, and we've already proven in the video and from the witness that the plane was landing and that it was descending. So why would we not believe this reported time that if you convert 2:43 a.m., you get 1843 UTC? Only reported in Chinese news, not reported in the West, interestingly enough. But we were able to find it because MH370x investigators are extremely good. Also want to point out here in this picture, Catherine T. reported seeing black smoke behind the orange glow. Resembled a contrail, but black. It can't be a contrail because the plane is too low. This is consistent with the lithium-ion battery fire. It has very black smoke. And again, what's happening is it's coming out of the exhaust ports on the plane. So let's see, what else can we prove here, guys? We've indicated all the witnesses. We got that. We got the weather analysis. I mean, I think you guys can trust me on the weather analysis, but you can click on that one if you're curious. Some of the family victim stuff. What happened to families? They were told something. I'm confident they were told something at this point. If you watch these videos, they never believe the official narratives. They're on CNN. Everybody just thinks, oh, well, they're just in grief that they can't believe it. No, they're just logical people that realize this is all nonsense. This whole pilot suicide's nonsense. This idea of the plane crashing in the South Indian Ocean is nonsense. And they've all gone dark. They've all gone dark. Nobody's tried to reach out to me. I've got probably 20 million plus views blowing these videos up on social media. If it was my family, I'd be running to get to somebody like that, especially if they're in this grief state that people claim they're in, where they want to believe anything that's out there, right? I don't know that what they've been told. I don't think they've been told that their family members are alive. I don't think that their family members have been reunited with them, because some of them have remarried. I think that they've been told something that gave them closure. Like, you know, this certain thing happened. We know what happened. We can't tell you, but, you know, your family members are gone. That's what I think they've been told. I have no way to prove it. It's completely speculative. But from the psychological profile of these people, that's kind of what I'm getting from the situation. Let's see what else we got here. Yeah, problem with the live stream is pretty weird. You should be able to refresh it. But when I do the next one, when we get the next one, we'll figure it out. It'd be funny if the government was trying to interrupt us here. Yeah, and I'm going to have 5 more podcasts this week, and probably more. I'm getting a lot of requests. I probably won't be able to do them all, but I'm going to try to do as many as possible because, again, I'm an honest person who's trying to disclose the truth. And that's what somebody who's trying to do that does. Try to get the information out there. I'm not trying to string anyone along. I want the information to be out there as many people as possible. Best information to share. I'll get to that part in a second here. The radio intercepted communication is right near the time of our videos. So presumably they are telling them, hey, I'm going to land in the ocean. Plane's about to disintegrate. We're barely able to keep this fire contained. And then China intercepts that, right? So one is pretty interesting. A lot of people that think that the videos are fake and they look fake, take a look at the reality perception test. Does this look real to you guys? What do you guys think? Does that look real? Tell me in the chat. I want to hear yes or no. Is this real or fake? What do you guys think? Think this is real? Curious. Is this? You guys should be able to see. Think that's CGI? This is real. This is real. That's a real landing right there. So again, this is why we can't always believe what we look at. People think this is fake. This is actually real video here. Believe it or not. This is real video. This is, I believe, SpaceX. Yeah, this is SpaceX. This is a real video of SpaceX. Just goes to show you that things that look fake aren't necessarily fake. They can be real as well. Pretty crazy, right? So yeah, again, just because something looks fake doesn't necessarily mean that it is. And I'm probably going to have to stop streaming here for a little bit. I may stream a little bit later here, and maybe I'll try to fix my situation. I want to get my second monitor working. That's why I was a little bit late. I was trying to find a cord, and nobody has them. So let's do... Okay, before we get into the science, we're going to close out with a little bit of the science. But before we do that, I want to show you guys where you can find some of the content, right? So if you go down here to this, where the part of the debunk series are, and you get to the bottom here, you will find all the spaces that I've done. The space that you want, though, I don't have on here, the newest one that I did, but it's on my YouTube. You can find the newest one I did on my YouTube that you guys are watching right now. These are a lot of the podcasts that I did. If you want one that's short, the one with Chris Leto is probably pretty good. It's only like 20 minutes. The best one to watch is the confessionals video. The confessionals video that you can find right here, this one is 2 hours, but everybody who's watched it said, wow, I couldn't believe I got through all the 2 hours. Like, this was really compelling. And this is where I break it all down, right? So this is me going back and forth with Tony Merkel, who's a really nice guy, really good interviewer. We go through all the evidence, similar to what you and I just did now. You want to show people, you want to have a good 2-hour session with them, you know, go through all of this information. We just break it all down systematically, destroy the narratives. This has 128,000 views in just 3 weeks. This is already his second highest one ever. I get a lot of people come to me and say, I watched the confessionals. It was really good. The thing about the confessionals one is that we hadn't figured out the fire scenario. We hadn't figured out, I don't think, Edward C. Lynn yet. So there was a lot of stuff that came after this. But, you know, this is a really good one for breaking down the official narratives. So highly recommend taking a look at that one. The UAP podcast is really good as well. So if you want to listen to one that's about an hour long, this one's really solid with Steven. And he asked a lot of information here as well. And this is one where it's fully public, right? So you can listen to this one. So if you're just trying to convince somebody a little bit longer, I would say listen to this UAP podcast. And then Atwood Unleashed, if you want another 30-minute one that I did. This is another one where, and I think so this one right here as well will get you to the parts where I only had about 30 minutes, but we kind of got through all the information pretty quick on this one. And he was pretty skeptical of the whole situation. So if you have your skeptical friends that want to dig through it, this is a good one to watch as well. The ones coming up will obviously be really good because, you know, we have all this new information to go through as well. Oh, really? Problems with the stream. Okay, I'll take a look at the stream issue, guys, later, and I'll try to work through it so that it's working out better. It's pretty odd that it's happening. I plugged in, so we shouldn't be having those types of issues. I can tell that I'm plugged in correctly to the internet here as well. But I'll work on that. So, yeah, and I'm recording it, so I'll post this on YouTube for you guys as well if you want to watch the recording of it. That's pretty odd that it's not loading correctly. So let's go ahead real quick. I want to talk about the science just very briefly. I'm looking at OBS. Drop frame says 0. Says 0%. Weird. We've been live for 2 hours, 16 minutes. 0% drop frames. Odd. That's really bizarre. Maybe I have to disable the Wi-Fi and make sure it's only on the hard line. It shouldn't have to do that. So I want you guys to watch the science on here as well. This is the stuff that really started blowing my mind. Okay, gravity is the most important one that you have to watch. And on the gravity one here, I'm going to go ahead and just fast forward it a little bit. But gravity does not work the way we would imagine. So you can see that this is really how gravity works in general, is that the mass is displacing space-time like a sheet. And what this means is with the apple now, the apple is going to fall towards the earth, right? So this part I think people understand. But why is the apple falling towards the earth? The answer to that is because time is moving forward. So when time moves forward, it's going to fall on the curvature that's created here. This is the curvature. Okay? So if we take this to its logical extreme, then what you would see here is that what's really happening is as time is moving forward, the apple is converging on the earth. Right? Just like we see in this video, this image right here. It's not that the apple's falling straight down. It's that the apple is following the curvature towards the earth itself through the movement of space as time is moving forward. So really, what does this mean? This means that gravity is not really a force. I mean, you have a force essentially, though, that this is kind of moving in on the earth. But what's happening is time is moving forward and then objects are converging on one another. So if you want to visualize this, imagine that we're both in our current locations. We're in different points of the earth and we both walk towards the North Pole. Despite the fact that we're both walking in a straight line, we're going to converge at the North Pole no matter where we are on the planet, right? That's the same idea as what we're seeing right here. We're following the curvature of the earth in order to get to the same point. So we would see it look like this.
Instant after instant.
Right? But that's just because of how our mind perceives time, right? But what's really happening is the curvature of the earth is passing through. So when you want to try to visualize it, then you visualize it like this, right? Where you're seeing this field of warp.
The geometry
so this is actually more accurate to how what's really happening here. That space-time is being warped around the planet. And then the best visualization then becomes something like this. That the curvature is constantly being affected here. So if you have a satellite, you have to account for this curvature. Otherwise, your satellite will crash down onto the earth over time. And so again, if you put the apple there, now you can see how visually this works out, right? The apple falls down, but it's falling because it's following the curvature of the earth.
Finally,
and then you have the counter forces from the earth pushing back all the time.
Velocity, no forces.
And so if it's following without a force, you can see that this is how the satellite is automatically going to rotate. So this actually explains gravity in a much simpler way, right? And if we didn't account for this, then we wouldn't be able to orbit correctly. And now you see they've turned it into the moon, still doing the same thing, right? This also explains how the sun, how we're orbiting around the sun. It's all a matter of mass, which is displacing gravity, displacing space-time, causing curvature. So that's a really good one to watch and really important to watch. Yeah, I have 0 drops. It's super weird. But I'll save this on YouTube for you guys as well, so don't worry about that at all. The other one you guys need to watch is the double slit experiment, okay? A lot of people don't understand the double slit experiment, which is fine, but what I don't like is when people try to tell me that I don't understand it, which is just comical. I have a very, very good understanding of the double slit experiment because it's probably the most amazing science that's out there. So let's go ahead. So if you're trying to send something down, matter through slits, this is how we would expect it to happen, right? We'd have 2 piles, right? So if we just shoot one thing at a time, we would expect there to be 2 piles to form, right? Let's go ahead and fast forward. So if we do the same thing here, right, if you were to close one of them off and you were to shoot, then we're going to get one line, right? Now, if we open them up, where is it? Here's what happens, though. If we open them up and we shoot one thing at a time, for some reason we get this pattern. It's a wave pattern, which is, wait, how's that happening? Well, we're shooting it through two slits. It's got to go through one or the other. How is it creating this wave pattern, right? And this is what they call particle wave duality of light, is it can act as both. But if you try to figure out why it's acting as both, and we say, okay, well, why is it acting like a wave here when we're just shooting one photon through at a time? What if we add a detector and have it look, and the detector tries to figure out which slit the light is going through, which slit the photon is going through? What happens? What do you guys think will happen? Let's go take a look. Okay. So we add a detector right there, right? Now we add the detector. What? The wave function breaks down. All of a sudden, now we go back to two slits. Now all of a sudden, it's just going through one or the other. But the only thing we did was we added a detector. Why would the detector change the experimental observations? Why does that happen? This is very difficult to explain. This is the most mysterious thing in all of physics that no one can adequately describe. Sure, there's people that have theories, but no one can prove what's really happening. What we've been able to show now is that this creates something called non-locality. The way I look at it is the universe is aware of itself. The universe knows that you're looking at it, and it's changing how it acts, which is it's kind of a spiritual understanding, right? Which helps you guys understand why I myself become more spiritual the more I look into science. Science isn't as simple as we thought. If it was, we should just always see the this pattern like this. Instead, we get the wave pattern breaks down. They call it the wave function collapses. Why is that important? Because we're going to rebuild that wave function. Now, when the wave function is doing this, what's happening here is that due to the fact that the speed of light exists, this is reacting faster than the speed of light. This is what has caused the emergence of non-locality, that's what that means. Non-locality means essentially information moving faster than the speed of light, also known as quantum entanglement, also known as quantum teleportation. Information being teleported faster than the speed of light. So now you kind of understand why this is important, right? Because if we can do this and the information can break down, then what do we need to be able to do to our airplane in order for it to teleport? We need to have it convert from this two lines back into our wave function. Now, if we convert our airplane back into our wave function, now we don't know which slit the airplane goes through anymore. The airplane can be anywhere. It moves from a definitive point in time, this point. Where is it? It moves from this point, definitive location, to a probabilistic location. That's what this is. It's a probability chart, right? Essentially what it's saying here is it could go through either of these. It's creating a wave function. So if we break it down into a wave function, now we've enabled quantum teleportation of a macroscopic object. And what is quantum teleportation of a macroscopic object? Macroscopic decoherence. That's what that term means. Macroscopic decoherence is essentially what I'm describing there. So macroscopic quantum phenomena become apparent. So if the idea here is that we can convert this to a Bose-Einstein condensate, which is moving from fermions to bosons, where they can share the same point down into a single point, we can create a situation where a macroscopic object has the properties that we would see from the quantum world. And why is that important? Because now we've merged quantum and macro. Now we've allowed the double slit experiment to apply to a macro phenomenon. Or in other words, rebuilding the wave function. By turning the plane into the wave function, now we've reversed the double slit experiment. Now we can have spooky action at a distance, as Einstein called it, which is essentially faster than light travel. So this is how the plane is consistent with physics and science, teleporting. Pretty insane. Now, if you watch this video, he kind of described, the PBS Spacetime guy, who I like a lot, explains this phenomenon as well. And there have been scientific papers that have shown that they've been able to have macroscopic decoherence on atoms, groups of atoms large enough to be able to see in a microscope. Now, doing it to a 777, that's a whole nother story. And so we still don't know all the mystery around it. Like, how are they pulling this off for an object that has people inside of it? Are those people able to live? In order for those people to be able to live, there has to be a shell somehow around the object, causing the overall object to decohere, to macroscopic decohere, but somehow, the people inside are not being affected by that. And to me, that's very difficult to understand. So, which is why I don't want to give the families, the victims of the families, any false hope. I think that we're talking about a lithium-ion battery fire. We're talking about quantum teleportation, where the macroscopic object has been converted down to a wave function. It's very possible that, this is a doomed event for all the people on board. Still very possible that they did not make it through. But what we do know is that the official narratives are a lie, that there was a fire on board this plane. It was an emergency event. The pilot is not a suicidal pilot. That is a fiction. Did not go into the South Indian Ocean. Also fiction, as we've proven. The technology that we see here is real. It explains everything. Why did they find parts of the debris? Parts of those debris actually had burn marks on them. That is consistent with this fire event that we see. It's also consistent with teleportation. If they teleported this plane somewhere else, there's no issue with the debris. Debris can just be after it was teleported somewhere else on Earth. So everything that we've used is more evidence than anyone else's theories by far. We've used the witnesses. We have a scenario that makes sense from an emergency perspective. We are consistent with the debris and the lack of debris. We even found a leaker, guys. We have more evidence than anyone, okay, by far. And we can explain the science. We can actually explain the science. I didn't think we would ever be able to explain the science. You go back to me like 8 weeks ago looking at this, I would have said, we're never going to be able to explain what we see here scientifically. Now I've got physicists tutoring me in my DMs, trying to teach me how to understand it better, right? And it's blown my mind, absolutely blown my mind. I can't believe I'm in the position that I'm in, where next Sunday I'm going to be interviewing Salvatore Pais himself, potentially multiple times. And we've confirmed that. It's going to happen. So 2 p.m. Eastern, I've got to get my internet fixed so that we don't have to deal with the BS that we're dealing with right now. We're going to go through the science. We're not going to go through the videos in the first call. I'm going to go through the science with him about these effects, Meissner effect as well. You guys think the LK99 is not real? Okay, well, tell me how this is happening then. This is a rock floating in space, okay? Floating, freely floating, with a magnet on its side. The reason why this happens is something called flux pinning. What that means is that it's not pure. And so what happens is that it gets stuck because some of the magnet waves are trying to get around it, and other ones can't get through. So it creates a situation where it's like you get it stuck in space where it can't move. And just to prove that it's real, they'd have this ring go around it just to prove that it's not a trick. This isn't even the only video. This is just one of them. I mean, you tell me superconductivity is not real, and this is a room temperature rock. This is not being supercooled or anything like that, which is how we could create these properties if we supercool them. Having it be at room temperature enables a whole lot more. And just to prove it, they show, here, they go, that's a magnet that we're looking at right there. And this is essentially freely floating outside of the magnet, which shows flux pinning. So, look at the videos. If you don't think LK99 is real, you should probably just look at the videos and try to explain those. Because even if it's somehow we haven't fully proven it, and the reality of this is that there's a lot of people that try to disprove it. I'm pretty sure that's also been disinformation. And just because someone has a recipe for lasagna does not mean that everyone's going to make perfect lasagna, right? You have to know how to make it properly. So just because certain people were not able to make it does not mean that it doesn't work at all. It just means they didn't follow the right recipe. Very important. Okay, let's see what we got. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions, blah, blah, blah. I'm just trying to look and see. I missed a lot of the questions. I think we talked about saving the plane due to the passengers who are the Freescale semiconductors who we've directly linked, again, to the technology via my piece yesterday or 2 days ago, right here. Freescale superconductors, guys. 2005 National Security Agency report. Superconducting technology assessment. Freescale semiconductors is listed throughout it. This directly links the government to the company and to the technology that we see. Smoking gun. The batteries. How do we prove that this thing came down? Well, let's look at that. This is how many lithium-ion battery fire situations there are by the FAA. There's one per week, more than one per week. These things are extremely dangerous. This scares me more than orbs teleporting my plane by far. This is very dangerous right here. And look, this is how they packaged them. Does this look safe to you guys? Does this look safe? They missed 2 security screenings that were not done. They packaged them the same day the plane took off. This is how they packaged them? This looks extremely dangerous to me. This? Really? I mean, come on, guys. And this is how they put them, just in boxes like this? Yeah, no, this, just on pallets? I would not feel comfortable if this was on my plane, in my cargo hold. Not at all. So, yes, we are extremely, extremely confident in the fire scenario. It was a lithium-ion battery fire. Okay, let's close it up here. So I gotta go get some food and do some other stuff. And I'm sorry the video is being disrupted. I will re-upload it. I'm not sure what's going on. Could be my internet. I'll try to get that fixed for next time. Yeah, criticisms on how I act, you know, I just don't really care, guys. Look at what we're dealing with here, guys. It's the biggest conspiracy in the history of the world. Of course, people are not going to be able to deal with it. I cannot baby every single person who wants to act in bad faith or be rude or whatever, right? I'm a real person, and you can tell my real personality. You know, I would say compare me to other people you see on TV that are stringing you along, that don't answer any questions. What you're dealing with here is the real deal of somebody trying to tell you the truth, as opposed to people that are out there who are, you know, trying to deceive you or, you know, kind of be coy in the information. You know, I'm disclosing every single thing I know as honestly as I know it, and I'm giving you access to the information firsthand. So I hope you understand that what that is for me to build my credibility, so that you understand that what I'm telling you is real as far as I know it. And again, we've gone through, I think, most of the evidence, if not all of it, here at this point. Yep, let's see. So I think that's about where we'll stop for now. I think we'll talk a little bit more later, but I'm not seeing any other relevant questions. But look through the evidence here, guys. If you have questions on the science, read that stuff. You know, get up to speed with it. You know, I think that's what we need people to be doing, is informing themselves. That's what I did. A lot of this stuff, like, I kind of understood, right? But it wasn't until I dug into it more that I realized, like, oh, wow, this is how gravity really works? Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Looked into the Meissner effect, looked into LK99, thought, wait a minute, why was this dismissed so quickly? I'm looking at multiple videos. They're showing flux pinning. You know, how is this just dismissed as not being real? It's not being dismissed as not being real in China and Korea, I'll tell you that much. It's only being dismissed as not being real in the United States. VM teleportation, found an article about that. We actually found, if you Google popular mechanics, traversable wormholes could really exist. This is the one that probably blew me away the most. I didn't think there was going to be anything that supported wormholes and teleportation. Oh yeah, sure, they can exist. Not only can they exist, they don't require exotic matter. They will survive, humanly traversable. You could survive them. And then the last part says they could build a double layer shell around an object, which is somewhere down here, I think. So, you know, check this paper out, Popular Mechanics, if you want. And again, if you don't like Popular Mechanics, that's fine, because they have all the papers linked in there, which I don't ever trust, like, just an article like this. I actually go click and I find the papers myself, and I want to read the paper, you know. And you can actually click and then you can download the PDF over here. You can see I've already done that. You can read the paper yourself. You know, it's a hard read. You got to know some physics, and I kind of skip over a lot of the math, right? You got to presume that the math checks out. But you can understand the basis of what they're talking about in general. This takes a long time to get through. So I've read all these myself because, again, we need to be more critical thinking, not just reading, believe whatever we read as a headline. Let's dig into it and say, does that really what it says? Is that really accurate? And if we do that, we'll become better people and we'll create a better community. So, okay, the pieces of the plane they found, in the only piece of the plane that has been conclusively tied with a serial number is the flaperon. That flaperon was missing the unique serial number plate. So you want me to prove that? Just watch in real time. Missing ID plate delays confirmation. Critical identification plate was missing. They use a non-unique serial number to match the ID, to match the wing, to the flaperon. They don't tell you that in the media. So instead, they just use a Boeing part number. That's not a unique serial number, guys. just confirms that it's from an Boeing 777. Well, I'll tell you what, there was another Boeing 777 that was bought by GA Telesys in October of 2013. This is an exact match of MH370. This does not confirm that this comes from MH370. So, I mean, maybe it does come from it. Again, we're dealing with teleportation, so it's not really an issue. But I just want to point out, you can't believe everything you get told on TV. The real truth is usually buried slightly below the surface, okay? How does a serial plate that's bolted into a flaperon come off? How does it come off in the water? Makes no sense whatsoever. So, use critical thinking when you look at the evidence. So I'm not gonna. Should I go full screen? Ooh, no, full screen. I gotta get a better camera for that. You're seeing too much pores. So again, guys, thank you guys for listening in here today and going through this information with us. I will add more, answer more questions. The reason why I've been on Reddit trying to answer questions is because I want to be able to show people that I'm out there as a real person and I can answer as many questions as possible. I can't address every single person individually, which is part of the reason why I'm here on this stream, because, you guys could see probably from my Twitter, I have 170 notifications. I pull up my Reddit, I'm sure I have 30 or 40. I just can't reply to everybody. So I wish I could, but we've just reached a point where it's impossible. So hopefully this will arm you guys with the information, and then you can go out there and tell people, the information and help out. Because I need you all to help with disseminating this knowledge to other people. I can't be there answering every single person. So you've been armed. I thank you for listening right now, and we'll talk again soon, guys. Have a good day.